I talk about it. There we go. Yeah, so we were in terms of like who's going first. We were just going to go down the list of, that we see on Google Forms. But if anyone has any, like time restrictions and they want to go first or last, let us know now, or you can just message one of us privately in the chat, and we can let you, make sure that you go at your preferred time. But if not, we'll just keep going down the list. Any questions so far? We all good? Awesome. Okay. So the thing that we've been super excited to announce now is basically the fact that there is prize money involved today. It is kind of a lucky draw situation. It's not going to be best project or anything like that. We want to make it fair for everyone. No project is greater than the other, so we want to give every project a chance. So basically what it's going to be is $50 to 3 people, and you can basically use $50 towards anything related to your projects, and we'll basically you can basically buy anything for $50 and then we'll reimburse you up to $50 for it. So 3 people will get we'll be able to spend $50 after this. So we will be picking the names of those people at the end together, and it's going to be totally out of luck, or at least I hope it's going to be. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So with all that said, Jacob, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think you summed it up well. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. Unfortunately, SCESoc executives, you won't be eligible for the prizes, but for everyone else, yeah. All right. Thanks, Darsh.
Yeah, no, very valid terms and conditions there. But yeah, okay, let's get started. So first on the list is Nikita. So yeah, she's going to be talking about the Tales of Endor.
Ayo, do I have to be first?
Come on, Nikita. Well, set an example. Come on.
No, I'm 5 minutes away from finishing my presentation. That's why I was at work until like 5:30.
Okay, so we could move on to the next for sure. No worries.
I'm sorry. I'm almost ready, I promise. It is a Nikita moment. It happens, but I'm almost ready.
Okay, no worries, not at all. So next on the list is Sarah Chow.
Cool. Okay, first up. So, Darsh, can you enable the screen share?
Yes, I will make you co-host.
Okay, so for context, I have recently moved out to Toronto in January for my co-op, and as I'm living not at home, I need to do some grocery shopping, and so as per normal, I go onto the App Store and I find a grocery list app. We can't really see it because it won't focus, but essentially, I did not like this app. So for 2 reasons, it did not delete my grocery list. You can't see it, but essentially it doesn't delete the list once I've finished with it. And it's just it wasn't that easy to use. So I was like, hey, I'm in software engineering. Why don't I just make my own app? And so my goal was to make a grocery list app, very simple, very bare bones, because I'm not like colorful or whatever that is artistic. And so the challenge to this project was that it needed to be done using Swift because I wanted it for my iPhone. And so that was something that I've never touched before. So I will show you sort of what it looks like once the program runs. So again, I haven't really touched this in a little bit just because I've been so busy with work, but this is as far as I got with the app. And so I did this back in January. And so essentially there'll be the title here, and then I have certain lists for different days. And so I have from June 21st, I have this list. So if you go into this, you have beef, and then you can click into this for more details. So it's supposed to be lean beef, but excuse the typo. And then yogurt, I can say strawberry yogurt or snacks, and I can check it all off. And then that'll be my completed grocery list. And so it's very easy to look at. It's very easy to use. You just check it off once you're done. And this is as far as I got in terms of the app itself. But the last thing that I had implemented was this tab at the bottom. So here you see there's a list, and then I'm not sure if the application will break if I click create. Yeah, okay, so it doesn't really work, but essentially the whole idea was that I can either view my current list, or I can make a new list, and then it's supposed to be like a new list area. But the main issue that I ran into was so I was following like this like tutorial I found online, and the tutorial was mostly based off of like front end design. So like literally just like, you know, how to position blocks onto the screen. And the issue I ran into here was that now I need to go more into the back end side of it, aka like talking with the database. And I found that part to be kind of tricky, but that's as far as I got. I never actually like got it onto my phone, but yeah, that's my project. Oh, and then like if you guys are more curious about Swift, there's a bunch of like tutorials online. It's really cool, especially because I mean like chances are you know someone who has an iPhone or like an Apple device. So it's really cool just to like make your own application and like use it on your day-to-day purposes and stuff. So if you're ever interested in learning Swift, I 110% recommend it. And I know that like mobile development is kind of a new thing in companies. So that's a really cool skill to learn. But yeah.
Really cool. Nice. I love the layout of it. I think it's like, you know, really sweet in terms of like being able to have multiple lists. I feel like that's itself mind-boggling to me. Like that makes so much sense because obviously the list is not going to be the same every single week, but you might want to reuse it. So I love that idea. Does anyone have questions about it? We can always, you know, share your thoughts on it. Swift. Yeah, I don't think Swift is. Yeah, it can only be done on.
Yeah, on a Mac. Yeah, unless you have a VM, that's right.
Hackintosh for sure. I'm really like shocked that, you know, to see like the Swift UI IDE has like memory charts and everything like right on there.
Yeah, I know.
That's really cool. Awesome. Anyone else have questions? Anything to share? Cool. Thank you, Sarah. That was amazing. We can move on to the next person. It was supposed to be Farabi, but oh, Farabi's here. Farabi, are you ready? I think you just walked in. You are next on the list.
Did I miss other projects?
No, you just missed one. But if you, do you want to go next, or do you want to wait for a bit?
I'll wait for a bit. I'll get my stuff prepared.
Sounds good.
Cool. We can probably swing back to Nikita if she's ready.
Yeah, that was 5 minutes, Nikita. Come on.
I am ready, actually. That's all I needed. I was just like, I was getting there.
Okay, cool.
Am I allowed to share my screen?
Soon. There we go. Should be able to now.
Share screen. All right, we'll go with this. Yeah, hopefully everyone can see. This is a little different of a project. It's actually, how do I go back to like, I can't see the chat anymore, is it? What? Oh my god, why is Zoom so bad? There we go, chat up here. Okay, I don't know why it separated it. Anyways, this project's a little different because this is my D&D campaign that I'm gonna share to you guys. It's full of memes. It's great, and I'm proud of it. It's been going on for a long time now. I think I do the calculation of how many hours it's been going on for, but it's not even like halfway done. It's a very big project, so yeah. Anyway, so it's called The Tales of Endor. That's because the world is called Endor. So I'll get on with it. So what is, hopefully everyone can see this, right? Yeah. So what is The Tales of Endor? It's a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaign. All the story and the world and like the adventures and stuff like that are written by me, and I'm the dungeon master. And it's currently on chapter 3 out of 10 with 14 sessions played so far. And like each session's around 3 hours, has 42 hours of gameplay that's happened already. And there's like a bunch more. I think it'll probably last around another year, honestly. But it's a really fun campaign. I definitely think like if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons before, but you like, you know, you have a group of friends that you just like to like mess around and stuff like that, it could be something. It's a great board game that you should invest in. So anyways, this is Endor. It's a wonderful land. it's essentially the whole world, and these are all the continents. So we've got around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish continents. They are split up a little bit, but all the different colors are each different continent. And as you can see, there's a lot of different races that live in each continent. So in the main one, Diarian, there's a bunch. The humans, halflings, dwarves, gnomes, and half-orcs live there. You have the lighter green province of Blix, which has your elves and your drow. So this is just all of the elven people. You have the continent of Massus, which is home to Dragonborn, which are a wonderful race of people who have dragon ancestry. Then you've got Mabuka, which is split into two. One of the islands has Tabaxi and cat people on it. The other island have tieflings on it, which are people who have inherited demon characteristics. And the final island is Azra, which is also split into two, and it has Goliath and Aarakocra on it, which are the bird people and half giants. So this world, every single one of these continents has its own leader and its own government system and things like that. So some of them are monarchies, some of them are democracies, but all of the leaders sort of know each other, and they do get together and they discuss world events and things like that. And they all gather in the human province once in a while to talk to each other. So it's, although it's a very divided world, at the same time, it's a very, I've built this world to be very accepting of other people and to be as cooperative as possible. There are some small, clashes here and there between the races, but for the most part, people like having friends with other people. So what's up with Ender? Why are we talking about Ender? Why is there an adventure? Well, all across the world, random soil is just being corrupted, and it's causing strange shadow-like creatures to essentially spawn from the soil, which is obviously wreaking havoc on the population. And people are asking their leaders to step up and figure out what the hell is going on. It does seem like you can burn the area to essentially get rid of it, but obviously that involves burning the land, which then renders the land useless because you can't grow anything on it. You gotta wait till everything regrows. And it's overall not the best thing to do. And it's actually been starting to figure out that people that are actually caught in the corruption are indirectly causing the spawns of the creatures. So if you get a bear to walk through the forest, well, then now the bears turn into a shadowy creature, and we don't know how to deal with that. And it gets worse. If a human walks into the forest, well, good luck with that. Guess you're gonna be a shadowy creature. So yeah, there's some havoc being wreaked on the world. No one really knows why, but all the leaders are understandably very freaked out. And that's where we meet our adventurers. We've got Dunbeck and Bat, and yes, Bat is an owl, not a bat. He is a human wizard. We've got Radagast, who is a dragonborn bard. We have Nen, who is a drow sorcerer, and we have Zuri, who is a Aarakocra rogue. So this is the wonderful party of adventurers who have taken on the task of saving the entire world, although they don't really know it yet. This is the synopsis. So in chapter 1, as I said, it's only chapter 3, so it hasn't gone too far. But I guess in 42 hours, you expect to do something. Dunbeck and Radagast have met at a fork in a road, helping a flipped over caravan. The caravan is transporting a pregnant woman, a cleric, and the cleric's bodyguards. And it's on its way to its next town over, but was ambushed. And they are tasked with kind of finding out who ambushed it and retrieving the pole arm of the cleric, because she got no time, because she got to transport the pregnant woman before she gives birth. Otherwise, they're going to have a lot of issues. But they do this. They go back to the town that they were heading to. They give it to the cleric, and the cleric's like, "Yo, you guys did a really good job. If you ever want to like be part of my religious system, you don't necessarily need to be religious to do it, but you could just be like recruits. Here you go." So they become recruits of the Red Star Alliance, and they learned that it's essentially a church of war clerics, which I guess the closest thing I could describe it is like Canadian peacekeepers. They go places, they make sure that everything's okay. In times of war, they keep peace between people and they heal people. That's about it. But they worship the god of passion and freedom, so they're very passionate about making sure that people have the say in what they want and that they're alive and stuff. they are sent out to a mission to a nearby town to check out some of that corrupted land. And this was actually their very first encounter with it, because they were traveling and they didn't really know that this was starting to go on, as did the rest of the world. They didn't really know that things were about to hit the ceiling. They learned that the corruption is actually caused by an incantation. It's not natural. So somebody all around the world, there's some group of people that are doing this, and they have essentially, what they assume is, started some sort of plot to take over the world. So it's not natural. There is something going on behind the scenes and no one really knows what's going on. They learn that the people behind it are a species called Naga, which are kind of like a sort of snake people. And they also learn that these similar issues are happening in Dunbeck's hometown. Oh Lord. So they race back to try and save Dunbeck's hometown. And they actually managed to do it. They cure a nearby forest spirit that was normally in charge of taking care of the town, but it got taken over by the corruption. So now that it's cured, it can properly protect the land again. But oh no, Dunbeck's parents are actually being held hostage by the spirit for causing this corruption. But actually it's fine. It turns out his parents were tricked into doing this and let go. But like, it also turns out that the person who tricked them is headed literally straight for the Elven capital to mess more stuff up. So now they gotta like use up all their gas tanks and like skedaddle to the Elven province. That's where we begin chapter 2, where Dunbeck and Radagast head up to the Elven province, but actually Radagast just gets arrested along the way for something he did a really long time ago. And that something is causing a riot and murdering a girl. Oh wait, no, he didn't actually murder the girl, he was just framed for it, so it's fine. When I'm not leading a band of murderers, that's okay, thank God. But then Dunbeck and Radagast head to the Elven capital again, you know, short adventure aside. And they buy some funky new gear, including a fire sword and a cool treasure map that'll come in handy later. They head up to the palace and find the Elven prince, Daxter, and they warn him about impending doom by this Naga who's headed for them. But sadly, it looks like the Naga's already infiltrated the place because he poses an Elven guard to get in. They finally save the day, though, after navigating a long underground temple to get to the person trying to corrupt the city, and they spent way too long on some very easy puzzles, might I add. They reach the Naga and stop him, but sadly the Naga gets away, and they don't really get to ask, you know, interrogate him and ask him some questions. Wah wah. They're then told by the prince that he's going to gather all the leaders. The council meeting, right? He's going to gather all the leaders. He's going to meet the capital and start spreading the word that this is going on. And Dunbeck and Radagast were tasked with actually going to find an underground library that was owned by the God of Wisdom in hopes that they can actually figure out what's going on, because nobody's old enough to know. Elves live for like thousands and thousands of years, and they don't even know what's going on. So chances are, whoever this race is, they have been dormant for like tens of thousands of years and have suddenly resurfaced for no goddamn reason. That brings us to chapter 3, which is where they're currently on. So this is everything that has happened so far. Dunbeck and Radagast head underground. They befriend a tiny mushroom after saving his life. His name is Blue. They now find some new friends, a woman named Nen and a man named Zuri. So those are the other two adventurers that have joined them. Nen is on the search for the same library because the Naga had killed her caregiver and she seeks revenge. And Zuri is trying to find an old friend who was kidnapped by literally an underground crime syndicate called the Mist. And together all of them use that map that Dunbeck found or bought to raid an old tomb and search for some cool treasure. But then Dunbeck kind of got cursed. Oh well. And then they head out to town to kind of like find some more clues about the library. They learn that the library actually sort of like will show itself to them if they seek it out, and if the God of Wisdom deems that they're worthy to find it. Oh, and they lifted Dunbeck's curse, but they may have pissed off the spider goddess. That's fine. You know, we'll just deal with that later. But after passing the trials from the God of Wisdom, they were transported into some sort of like hidden dimension where the library exists. Literally, no wonder people couldn't find it. SMH, my head. It just like, the God was like, nah, I'm just not going to actually physically build it. It's just going to exist in your mind. And some random other sus things that happened. They've just been having bad reoccurring dreams of the same battle over and over again between giants and Naga. It seems like this is like an all-out war between the ancestors of Goliaths and, you know, like a bunch of Naga warriors. Also, wait, why is there a 70-foot tall Naga? Is this Shingeki no Naga? Like, what's going on? But it's fine. The really buff Goliath giant man with a huge axe just killed the Naga, and hopefully this doesn't have any repercussion in like 10,000 years. It should be fine, right? Anyways, that's it. That's the story so far.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
That was really cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool. Wait, is this like, I'm not like, I guess, a big Dungeons and Dragons person, but is this something that's ongoing that you guys are playing and this is the story that's come out so far, or is this something that you're creating for
Yeah,
people?
so this is like, I'm writing all of this for the people. We meet up kind of like weekly to go through this, which is why it's been like 14 sessions, maybe 15 if you count like the first one, which is like 45 hours so far of just playing this campaign. It's been pretty good.
Nice, nice.
Can I ask, like, how did you get started on your like world building and story building? Like, is it everything you like just came up with on your own, or like how did you like get into it?
There's a lot of inspiration from things that I like. For example, the underground library, obviously, like that's very heavily inspired from Avatar: The Last Airbender. But a lot of this stuff, like a lot of the world building, is things that are kind of like canon in Dungeons and Dragons. So I do take a lot of like, inspiration from the main source material, but then it's just like I apply most of that to my world in my own way. So like some stuff I leave out. For example, in the main Dungeons and Dragons material, it's like tieflings, which are the race of people who have like demonic features. A lot of people don't like them because they look like demons, but I've sort of like let that go. Like, I don't want people to be judgmental against each other, so I just made it so like, oh well, they have their own features, it's whatever. But yeah, like a lot of this stuff, it's kind of like pre-existing in the terms of like how the races work. Like, I haven't created any new races and stuff, but the world and the story behind the world, I wrote all of that using like the D&D like official material to get like people and, weapons and other things like that.
Okay, cool. And like, is the story like available for others to read, or is it something that you only go like you only do like through the game when you play with your other like D&D members?
Sadly, it's only through the game. I don't know if it's really cool. I may end up like compiling all of it into one big document so that it's sort of like released as its own thing. But because it's such a big campaign, like there what was I gonna say? Like there are pre-existing campaigns that are a bit smaller, but considering that even this one is like probably gonna go on for a year and a half, it is a lot. So I do have it all on my Google Drive. It wouldn't be very hard to compose into one area so that people have like the world and other things like that. But yeah, no, this is just played out through the games themselves. So this, like, the characters and the people that I play it for are learning the story as it goes. I kind of know a bit more where the direction is headed, but obviously I'm not going to tell them that.
Right, true. Yeah, if it is ever like released publicly, like I think we'd all like to read it. It's very interesting.
Yeah. How many chapters do you foresee?
I foresee 10.
Okay.
And they're almost done chapter 3, and it's already been 45 hours. So it is long. I foresee 10 because I want them to get to like a level 10 or 11. There's like, you could get up to level 20 as a character, but at that point it becomes very hard to put them against stuff that they won't just completely annihilate unless it's something that's about to destroy the world.
Makes sense. Okay. Cool. Anyone else have any questions? Anything to share? Yeah, really, very epic. Cool. Okay, we can move on to the next person in that case. Thank you, Nikita. That was amazing. I guess, Farabi, are you ready now? Yeah. Awesome. Let's go. Let's do it.
No, it's not letting me share my screen.
Did he just dip? Oh, he's back.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
So here's what I'm working on. I just finished writing a little article. It's about lessening reaction time for batting by shortening distance in cricket. The whole idea behind this is increasing your reactions to combat balls that are targeted towards your body. Cricket's a sport that's somewhat similar to baseball. I have a little abstract here. Cricket balls are heavy in weight, requires hand-eye coordination combined with immense bravery in order for a batter to be able to strike them, especially when a ball is traveling towards their body. So it can improve the training, but the nature of the required training requirements are difficult to achieve, and it poses significant risk of injury to the batter. And let's say you want to be able to face really fast balls. You don't actually have to face really fast balls to be able to train to face them. You can mimic the same reaction times by facing slower balls from a shorter distance. So I have some formulas here. This one calculates the momentum, which tells you how much momentum it carries at that speed. This gives you the distance at which that ball is going to be launched towards you, how much time you have to react to it. The ball's 90 miles an hour, different lengths, some more equations. And in conclusion, like let's say you want to practice facing 90 miles an hour from a distance of 16.2 meters. You could instead face 50 miles an hour from 9 meters to have the same amount of reaction time. And this method is also applicable to other sports such as baseball, tennis, table tennis, badminton, squash, soccer, football, handball, hockey, and lacrosse, etc., etc. It all comes down to building just a simple speed, time, distance calculator. So something like this. But I want to create this from scratch. And I have a working version in the form of an Excel sheet. So you put in your input here. This gives you the reaction time. You then paste it here. And in order to find out how fast you need to go from a shorter distance, right, that gives you the distance. Or you could change the distance here. And we'll give you the speed, etc., etc. I pretty much made a plan of how I want to go about this. So establish the formula, make a working version on Excel spreadsheet, make a working version on Flutter, which is what I have been doing recently. So this is my Flutter version that I'm currently working on. And here's all the code for it. I'm referring to a previous project just to refresh, get a refresher on all the syntax. And the final stage is to make a working web app version with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm learning HTML right now here. And yeah, that's about it. That's my project. It's not complete. That's what I have so far.
Awesome, thank you. Looks super neat. Yeah, so next up we will have
Do you want to do questions or?
oh yeah, good point. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about that project?
Yeah, like I was wondering, how did you find all these, like how did you do all the calculations yourself, and how did you like come up with your conclusions?
So as is there a specific calculation you're referring to?
Like I guess, like how you came up with like the conclusions for the best like distance and stuff.
Yeah, I'll show you this. So the formula comes out to just your regular speed distance time formula, and it's right here. The velocity is your distance by time, and let's say the velocity you were training to face was 90 miles an hour. You would, in a regular game, be facing that from 16.2 meters. So you'd have 0.403 seconds to react to it. And the idea is that in training, you might not be able to replicate that. You might not be able to find someone that's capable of throwing 90 miles an hour. You could instead face a slower speed from a shorter distance. So you have the reaction speed, and all you have to do is plug in whatever speed you are able to throw out or somebody else is able to throw out, and that will give you the distance that you need to face that speed from in order to have the same reaction time.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay, thanks.
There's also another question in the chat here. What made you choose React for your development for the project?
What made me choose React is there are some few jobs that I want to apply to that require experience in React. So I felt that, you know, if I were to learn React by building projects, that would be a good stepping stone.
Cool. I have another question. So obviously, like, you know, I feel like there would be some amount of, I guess, error. Oh, I forget what the term is. Error, I guess, range.
Margin of error.
Margin of error. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. But basically, like, you know, it could be because of things like, you know, wind resistance or, you know, I guess, you know, pitch, friction, and things like that. I'm curious, like, you know, how big of a factor they play. Do you know, is that something you've thought about? And is that something you plan on adding or something like that in the future? But yeah.
So yes, I did actually mention that in my paper. So I'll send the paper here in Zoom. I'll see if that lets me send it.
Cool. Okay.
I mentioned that in reality, you actually have more time because the ball bounces. It doesn't come to you in a straight line. It also decelerates once it hits the pitch. And in the momentum part, I also explained that how much it hurts once it hits also depends on how hard the ball is. So a sponge ball at the same speed, even though it's the same weight, it's not going to hurt as much because it deforms on impact. So I also mentioned that these are considerations to be made. It's not letting me send the file here, but I'll send the little link here.
Yeah.
To the paper.
So yeah. So the plan is to like something that maybe you guys seen it in the advertisements as well, is to kind of get your guys' projects on our website, so you know more people can kind of discover it later you know. So I'll talk more about it at the end, but yeah, that's something maybe we can add to the website if you're good with it.
So there's another question in the chat. Do you think this could actually be applied to cricket players practicing?
Yeah, I actually manage the local cricket facility, and people that practice here, they use this technique. I use this technique myself for my own training. It's also a technique that's used across multiple other sports, like lacrosse goalies. If they're not comfortable facing very high speed due to risk of injury, they do the same thing. They'll have someone pretty much fling balls at them from a much shorter distance. They do the same in soccer with goalkeepers. They do the same in hockey with goalkeepers. Yeah, it's a technique that's applied across multiple different sports and disciplines.
That's pretty cool. There's another question. How and why did you get started on this? Do you play cricket regularly?
I do, yes. Yeah. So I'm like hugely into sports, and I'm also into building applications to solve problems. So this was a good opportunity for me to combine both passions. And this is something that has societal impact. This is a tool that people do use. And yeah, that's why I got started on this.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's scalable, right? I can build it on multiple different platforms. It can be as simple as an Excel sheet, or it can be, really stylized with CSS, et cetera.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a super cool project. Yeah, I'm
Can I
not
s-
seeing.
Can I say
Oh,
something quickly?
go for it.
Just
Yeah.
about like, time and stuff like that. So we are getting closer to 7. Is there someone who needs to like, leave by 7 that wants to go ahead in the list? Just want to make sure that, everyone gets a chance. So if someone is kind of constrained on time and wants to go faster, just raise your hand or put it in the chat. But otherwise, yeah, we can just move on to the next person. I don't see anything, so
Yeah, no, I don't see anything for now. So yeah, so next up will be Carlton Blueprint.
All right, so I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So we're here in a group of, I believe, 3 people that are presenting. So my name is Elias. I'm one of the devs in Blueprint. Ashna and Joe, you can introduce yourselves as well.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I'm Ashna. I'm currently a PM on the team, but I've also been a dev and VP project, so on the exec team for Blueprint. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm Joe, and I'm one of the devs on the Beneficent project at Blueprint, which I've been on for like the last 2 years almost.
Okay, cool. I'll get started. Okay, well, hey everyone. We're Blueprint, a club at Carleton that aims to build technology for nonprofits for free. We've been working with Beneficent, a nonprofit that gives out loans interest-free to people in need. A huge issue in the nonprofit community is not having the budget or resources to invest in new technology, and Beneficent is in need of a web application that can help them manage applicants going through their interview and verification process, and then managing clients who are repaying their loans. So essentially, we have a web application that we built, and there's a page where people can apply for loans, and then that application gets entered into the system. A logged in user can assign a loan officer to it, change the application status, add documents to the specifics applicant's profile, create a contract, upload signed contracts, turn an applicant into a client, which involves a third-party payment system. And then there's a whole section to view the client's loan summary and payment history. So to get this product built, the club's done a lot. We've interviewed devs and designers and have formed teams. And we've been working in like an agile environment. Like I mentioned, I'm the product manager for this product. So I write up feature requirements and then I present them to the design team and dev leads. And the designers work away and make their designs in Figma. And then the dev leads come up with a technical design document. And then both of those are given to the dev team to divide into stories and tasks and then build what we'll show in a couple seconds.
Who needs co-host privileges?
Myself and Elias.
Perfect. Okay, you should guys have it now.
Right. Okay, I'll start off by showing some of the key features of like the front end of our application. So can you guys see my screen? Okay. So yeah, coming on to the like landing page of our CRM, we have like 2 options here. So the apply for the loan is for applicants to apply for a loan externally through this like landing page. So they would fill in this application form with some of their like personal information and then some details about the loan that they're requesting. So how much money they need to loan out, the type of loan, and some like debt circumstances, why they need a loan. And then lastly, just some few acknowledgements and options here. And then they would submit the form and it would get processed into our system. So heading back here, the login is for the actual like employees of Beneficent, so the admins and loan officers. So they would log in to their dashboard here. Right now, we just have a bunch of fake data in the application. So logging in here, there are 3 key features of the platform. So coming in here, we have like the main applications like list view where we handle like all the intake of applications. So I have a couple examples here. I made one recently. So for example, if I were to apply for a loan, this is what my like application would look like. And as a loan officer or an admin, you would be able to view it, be able to assign this person to another loan officer where they would be able to track like the progress of this applicant. They would, for example, set up interviews with this person. And then if they are deemed fit, that they are like they're okay to move forward with the loan, then they will move forward with creating like a contract with this person, which determines like how much money they want to loan out and how much they're going to pay back every month for like the duration of their loan like repayment period. And then a few other options here. We have like the first installment and the last installment, which is all like contract related stuff. So yeah, after they like create their contract and it's signed, then this will like start the actual client process where this person is now a client. So coming into the client view, this is where we can actually track this person's like repayment process. So here we have the same sort of information about this person and also a progress bar here tracking how much they're paying every month and whether they're meeting like the amount that they should be paying every month. And if they're doing it either on time or if they're like overdue by some number of days. So that can all be tracked and managed here. So right now I paid $200 on time, so everything is green. And we are able to like do all this by integrating Wave, if some of you might be familiar with it. It's like an invoice service. So we're able to like integrate our Wave API with this app, and that's what's helping us track this person's payments. For example, if I go back here, we have this person, Giovanni. This person has not been paying on time and they're paying like less than the actual amount, then this progress bar will be red. So we have like some nice like visuals for that. And then lastly, the account manager here is like an admin feature. So as an admin, you're able to like manage the accounts of like the loan officers and other employees. So for example, you can view their account and then edit their information and whatnot. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the front end. I'll pass it over to Elias now, talk a little bit more about the code.
Yeah, let me get this set up. All right, can everyone see this?
You're good.
All right, cool. So the app is built using the MERN stack. So that's MongoDB as our database, and then Express and Node as kind of our backend, and we use React on the front end. So that's separated out into 3 distinct. These are all actually Git repositories, and the reason they're separated out this way is so that a change on the front end in the past would have conflicted with a change on the back end, which really we didn't want because it didn't make sense. So we decided to split these up into 3 separate repositories. And our tech lead at the time, Hamza, did a great job of integrating this all into one nice, neat package for us. I think Joel will talk about a bit more about that later. Considering more on the back end, our app uses kind of like a 3-layer architecture. So essentially, the way that someone will interact with our backend code base is through, it's separated into 3 layers, which is the routes, which is kind of That's what you call like, you call post requests on a certain route for API. Then the controller kind of is the mediator between what our business logic layer is, and then how the user would publicly interact with the API. So it's able to kind of sanitize the request and then filter out what we send back as a response. And then our actual service layer are the layers that kind of interact with our data layer, that being the database, and doing all of the business logic-y type stuff over there. We also have some more miscellaneous things. So our configs, we have some files here just for validation. So for example, if you're sending in an application, we don't need to know your dog's name. We just need to have all of this information required. Otherwise, it'll get errors in your API and whatnot. We also have some just utils here just for quality of life purposes. Our models are stored back here. They look, something like this. It's just a standard like Mongo schema. And we also have a wide range of integration and unit tests for each of the routes for using supertest and Jest. Don't think there's much else to say about the back end. I guess I'll pass it back to Joe. If you want to talk about more of the DevOps stuff.
Yeah, how are we for time? Because I don't want to take too much time if there's other people still waiting.
There are other people still waiting. If you can make it, like if it's not going to take too long, I'd say you can just, go
Okay.
ahead and finish stuff.
Yeah.
If it's like another couple of minutes or so, like that's okay.
Yeah, I'll just talk about like our main like dev process. Are you guys viewing my GitLab page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, like Elias mentioned earlier, our project is separated into 3 microservices: client, server, and then Nginx. So I think my favorite part about our dev process is how we manage our merge requests and how we deploy things like on a scheduled basis. So just quickly, as a developer, you would create like your own branch, and we use a very strict naming pattern. We follow fix, chore, or feed prefixes to specify what you're trying to do. That goes the same for our commit messages. So for example, if I go in here, if you want to push up a new feature or a fix for something, you would create like a merge request, and then other team members would review it and either approve it or leave some suggestions. And then once it's merged, it also automatically runs tests, runs a test pipeline to make sure everything is conforming to your tests and standards. And then lastly, coming down to the actual deployment, we have scheduled CI/CD pipelines that actually release and publish each microservice to either staging or production. So coming down here just quickly, we have a couple different ones. So we have a staging app, which I was demonstrating earlier, and then one to actually deploy to our production app. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks, guys.
Really cool. Anyone has questions?
I did see one question in the chat. How many months did this project span over, and what was the time commitment?
I was actually just typing out the response for that, but I'll say that probably quicker. Okay, so the project took 2 years, but the first year was a mess. If I'm being honest, a lot of the leads were inexperienced. I was actually there when it started. I can vouch for the fact that none of us really knew what we were doing. And it was a really big project to take on. Yeah, it was a really big project to take on. And we kind of committed to a lot more than we could handle. The second year is when it actually kind of really started. So it probably would have taken a year if we knew what we were doing, or 8 months, sorry. But yeah, time commitment varies depending on your role. I was a PM, so some weeks are busier than others. I think maybe on a busy week, maybe it was closer to I'm not sure, a 5-7 hours. But there were some weeks where I didn't have to do much, and I would just have to a 30-minute meeting, or I had to quickly reply to messages throughout the day or something like that. But yeah, maybe the devs can give a better response on what their time commitment was.
Yeah, we can type in the chat.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, first of all, like, I'm super impressed by how, well your, I guess, DevOps side, or like your whole structure of the whole application, all the 3 different microservices are laid out, and how well the code bases are structured as well. First of all, why no TypeScript? Second of all, how do you like? Why did splitting up the repositories help? Like, just curious about like what problems that solved for you, and what initiated that in a sense.
Yeah, so the credit for all that goes to our member Hamza. Unfortunately, he couldn't come right now because he has a midterm, but he was one responsible for all of the DevOps side. So huge shout out to him. You said why no TypeScript? Is that what you said?
That was my first.
Yeah, we actually are using TypeScript for our front end. I just didn't get into the code, but we are. And why we split into microservices, that was your second question?
Yes.
Yeah, like what Elias mentioned earlier, a couple issues that we were having when it was like a monolithic app. There were a few incidents where some changes on the back end actually like broke stuff on the front end somehow when it wasn't supposed to even touch or interact with each other, those changes. So that happened a few times, and it was super messy to like fix and rebuild everything. So that's when Hamza decided to just split everything into microservices, so they're isolated and easy to test separately, and then they can just interact with each other through like just APIs.
Cool.
So Robert asked in the chat, but I guess I'll share for everyone here. He asked, what are we doing in terms of security? So what kind of data is stored in this app and how is it secured? So we are following, some basic security protocols. So whenever a user has to make, a password, we salt and hash password properly using the crypto module and Node, which is known to be good enough for production level apps. Authentication is done using JavaScript web tokens. I'm not too knowledgeable of the entire inner workings of that, but it works well enough that unauthenticated users can't, get in and do whatever they want. In terms of the data we store on the app, we don't store any kind of sensitive personal information, I guess, outside of maybe first name, last name, and whatnot. So things like credit card info or other payment details like that, aside from like maybe like an address, those aren't stored on our application. Those are in terms of payments, those are stored on the external app we use called Wave. And so all of the payment is hand billed using that. We are just able to scrape that, scrape their kind of website and get payment info like that and display it on our web app.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Okay. I guess we can move on to the next one if no one else has any questions.
Yeah, I don't see anything else. Thank you again. That was another super cool project. So yeah, next up we would have Matthew McCrae-Bovell. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but
Where is
I think you may be one of the only people that has ever actually pronounced my last name right on the
let's
first
go.
try. So I'm like, like I've had
Hey.
people my entire life say like Bovel and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm like scarred. You don't know, man.
Nice, nice.
I feel you on
yeah,
that.
yeah, it do be like that. Yeah, I mean Robert's name is kind of like interesting too, but some people don't know French or they don't pronounce it right because I'm sharing my screen. I'm not trying to take up time here. I'm just trying to look for the tab. Let me try entire screen. Oh, Chrome tab, Chrome tab, Chrome tab.
I think you're muted, buddy.
So when I shared screens, it auto muted me and wouldn't let me unmute, which is a new experience for me on Zoom. So we're gonna try only sharing. Would I be able to be granted the access for sharing my entire screen? I tried to share one Chrome tab, but it like took away my audio permissions because I guess
Let
there's
me-
only one tab.
Sounds good. Let me try to fix that, Matthew. Here, you got host privileges now.
Oh, thank you. I promise I won't abuse it. You know what? This is a Mac problem, actually. I'm really sorry. This is a please grant your browser access to screen recording type issue. Does someone want to go in front of me while I fix my Mac type issue real quick?
Yeah, for sure. No worries. Yeah, so next up we have Peter McCannell.
Where is Peter?
Oh, is he not in the?
Is Peter here?
I don't see him actually in the list, so maybe not.
Peter is from EDSC, if I'm not wrong. But is someone else from EDSC here? We can move on to the next one.
Sounds good. Yeah, so Forrest Anderson.
All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen once I get permissions. And if you've ever seen me present about anything before, you know what I'm presenting about today. It's Rust. We talked about Swift already. It's time to talk about Rust. All right. And so once I
Do
get
you
the
have
permissions here-
privileges yet or no?
I don't think so. It doesn't look like it.
Did I just give all my privileges to Matthew and then?
Yes, Matthew, do you want to give me a screen share?
You know, if you had not said anything, I was about to like leave the meeting because I was gonna join on a different computer. You don't understand. How do I do this again? I go to like more participants.
Yeah, participants like hover on Forrest's name and then hover on mine too and then give me back.
Yeah,
my
how about
privileges.
1 second here. I'll make Forrest co-host real quick so he can share, and then
all right,
Darsh, you can be actual host.
Thank you. Wow, feels good. Thank you.
All right, we're good to go. So I'm Forrest. I'm gonna be talking about a project I did this Christmas. And over the Christmas break, my friend, he put together this really cool tall Christmas tree. Okay, so he was in engineering, so he did a lot of like system stuff, but then he also switched over to computer science, to the better side, as I say in front of all the engineers here, you know. But so he made this really cool tree. He addressed it with a Raspberry Pi. I told him to update his README. I don't know if he did. Nope. So it has the Pico code here, the files here, but I'm going to be talking about the software because I don't know hardware. And so essentially, he has this big tree. Each of these individual lights is an LED that's addressable, and you can send an RGB to it. Each one is 8 bits, I think. And so essentially, I'm like, okay, I really like Rust. I'd really like to have Rust running on some Raspberry Pi. And so I put this project together where it would go and render different things onto this tree. And so you can see right here, we have Mario. So this is like what it looks like just simulated on the computer. And then this is what it looks like outside on the tree. And it's definitely like a really cool result that we got from it. And so what I want to go into a little bit is some of like the process on doing this. And so as I mentioned, I worked on this project in Rust, and this allowed me to do quite a few interesting things with it. And so I mean, of course, like you could have done this with any other language, but specifically in Rust, what I tried to do is have a backend that could accept new requests to change what's playing on the tree. I wanted a front end that allowed you to go to a website and change what's playing on the tree. I wanted the Raspberry Pi to be able to be communicated with by a Rust binary on the Pi. And then also I wanted on your computer, you should be able to render what stuff looks like before you send it off to the tree, or you make like a pull request. And so after I set all of this stuff, I'm like, it'd be really cool if we had students come in and write some of their own like renders, is what I called them. And so we have Elias here in the call today. We have Robert here in the call today, and they actually contributed some of their own renders. And so I'm just gonna show this for everybody, and so shut them out a little bit. But this one was by Elias, and we'll take a look in a second. Actually, I might as well show you right now. So this one right here, I think, is Elias's, so the rainbow wave. So that one was pretty cool. So Elias went and wrote all of this code, and this was Elias's first time using Rust. So it was super cool. Like I brought people together on the CCSS Discord, and we went through, and I helped them get like this set up on their computer so that they could like go through this themselves. And even like not knowing Rust, a lot of the syntax is very familiar if you're familiar with like, I don't know, any braced language. You got if statements, you got numbers and stuff. And so there's definitely harder parts of Rust. I won't say it's easy, but it does pretty nice with some of the easier stuff. And then Robert did an interesting one. Robert took his logo and put it up on the tree. And so this one essentially reads from a JSON file that stores all of the information about the image, and then does some other cool stuff to get like those waves going on and stuff like that. And so essentially I wanted people to be able to come in, work on their own. And so I put up some code that's like, oh, you can do this. Essentially, you just iterate over the 75 pixels in height, and you iterate over to 20 pixels in width. And then you just set the pixel to whatever color you want it to be. And this was pretty good. But then the downside of it was like, I didn't set up the product super nicely for people to be able to add to it. So I'm like, okay, now that you've added stuff, you now have to go and add something here, add something here, add something here, so that it like interface with the project properly. But then after that was set up, people were able to visualize it locally. And so that's what like this was. Everybody was able to go look at theirs. It was interesting getting so essentially I have Rust running on the Raspberry Pi. And since the Raspberry Pi, I don't know which one this is, like a 0 or something like that. It's ARM64. Wait, whatever Arch. So it's the one that's not x86. Okay, there we go.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
It's ARM of some type. Yeah, and so effectively, like you need to specifically compile for this different architecture. And there's this pretty cool project called Rust Cross or something like that uses a Docker container to build for it, so you don't have to do anything special. And so that's running on the Pi, and I just want to walk through some of the code on like what it takes to set it up to communicate with the Pi. So if anybody knows like whatever SPI means, we got like some SPI stuff. We're going to dev SPI dev 0.0. Oh, bits per word 8, hertz 10 million. I don't know what any of this stuff does, but I just copied it from my friend and it worked perfectly. And so now that I've gotten all the complex engineering stuff out of the way, now I can go to the computer science side and say, okay, I just want to send a buffer to it that's 4,500 elements long. Each one has a unsigned 8-bit integer, and then it's kind of weird how it draws, where like it like it's like if you're lawn mowing across it. That's like the pattern that it has. And so this was all the stuff that I'm like, okay, I want to make this like abstracted away from people. And so essentially you just say, I want to draw this color at this position, and it'll figure everything out for you. And then I also have it hosting, I think I have it hosting the server on the Raspberry Pi. And so essentially in one thread, it's like waiting for requests, or every second it will check and see if it should show off like a new picture. And then every 30th of a second, 20th of a second, it will go through and like lock the mutex to get it from the other thread, figure out what it should be rendering, and then render whatever it should. Okay, so that's the stuff that's running on the tree, but I also want to take a quick look at the website, because as I mentioned, the website is also built with Rust to a certain extent. So essentially there's JavaScript that bootstraps this, and of course there's HTML and CSS, and that's all a language, but we have Rust that's rendering what the front end framework is. So like you have like reactive Vue, you have Angular, and then you have YEWU. And so this is like a Rust front end framework that allows you to do some stuff. And so if I take a look at the code right here, not the code, I can see like in the request, that's what I meant to say. I'm downloading a WASM file. It's 358 kilobytes. It could be compressed a lot more. And essentially this is just giving back a binary that gets run in the browser. And so WebAssembly is like a assembly format that languages can target and send to the browser. And what have I done? Oh, I just need to switch back to the other one, WASM. And so WASM's really cool. It's like a stack-based virtual machine. I don't remember the exact term for it, but I can go into like the debugger and then probably look at, oh yeah, so here's like the JavaScript that bootstraps it. So it's like, it calls WASM functions from JavaScript, but most of the logic is done inside of WASM. Can I quickly go check out WASM here? It's loading. Okay, so this is what the assembly format of WASM looks like. And so it has I don't know if this is probably pretty small. Oh, nice, I can make it bigger. It has similar things that we're familiar with if we've seen assembly, like x86. Of course, it's not the exact same. It's stack-based, and that gives some cool stuff. And it's, well, I don't know all the specifics, but you can look at this. You got some ads, you got some load and 8U, all those fancy stuff. And so essentially, in the same way that you'd have React go and do like virtual DOM stuff, I think this also does virtual DOM stuff. And so the front end code for that, let's go take a look at this quickly. I can take a look at the source and see inside of here, this is like part of the like HTML template. And also I had a friend write this. I don't know front end framework stuff. And so my friend went and wrote this. I wrote like the Rust side of it. He wrote the HTML side of it and the CSS side of it. But we can see in here, we got some HTML, we got some templating stuff, like there's some Rust in the HTML. Ooh. And then I got like a lot of Rust in other places as well. And so the bulk of it is if you click one of the buttons on here, then it will send a request to the backend, and that's what it's doing right here, basically. And so, fun fact, my URL, first of all, is not secure. So unlike Blueprint, if you go here and you click on this, then it will play on the tree. And so that's the first thing. And then second thing, my URL here, tree.dendrophobe, a little bit ironic because dendrophobia is the fear of trees. So got him on that one. But I think that's about it. So pretty cool project. If you want to go check it out, I'll post a link in the chat here so anybody can go take a look. I mean, we've heard that you should check out Swift. Swift is pretty cool. Rust is also pretty cool. So I recommend also checking out Rust. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it off there if there's any questions.
Awesome, thank you. I was just wondering, how often does the tree just randomly change from people like going on and switching it up?
Yeah, great question. And so I'm not sure. My friend told me that I should secure it because you didn't want people to like mess it up. But I'm like the tree is querying every 1 second to show something else off, and it doesn't really have so much of a problem of like when it switches, it's not going to be too erratic or anything. And then on top of that, so another question in chat I see is, where is the tree? So it's at my friend's house in somewhere near Barhaven. And so this is him in front of the tree somewhere in Barhaven. And it's been running all winter. It looked pretty cool when all like the other Christmas lights and that were up and stuff like that, but I think he said it's still up there. Now he also does one of these for Halloween that's a lot more interactive, and so he has like a lot of like mannequin sort of things that he dresses up and like makes spooky and plays spooky Halloween songs. And so I'm hoping that this year I can help him with that project as well.
Wow, this is amazing. This is like, you know, so fun, yet so intricate and cool. I love how you abstracted away so much that it makes it easy to, like, you know, for people to contribute. I love that aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Cool. Any other questions that people have? There's no plans of taking the tree down anytime soon, right?
He said when the snow melts, you know, and so it's like it's a limited lifetime, but we can come back next year with some cooler stuff. So we were thinking like it'd be awesome if there's a webcam looking at it so people could actually see what's playing on it and not have to trust that like if I go into network here and it sends a request when I press this button, that like this is making it do something different. But you know, yeah, upgrades for next year.
Awesome, cool. Okay, I guess we can go to the next person. Thank you, Forrest. That was amazing.
Cheers.
So many cool projects this year. Ryan, you're up next.
I don't know anymore. I feel very overshadowed. In the light of these massive, amazing projects, I have 3 tiny ones that are all a third complete, so they kind of make one complete one in different areas.
Oh, we're excited to see it, and no project's bigger than the other, man. Come on.
Okay, one third, maybe even a bit of a stretch. Hold on. Camera. Yes, on Project Circle. It's one that I've been wanting to start for a bit, and hopefully next year I'll have a bit more time, or even in the summer. But so the first one that I've been a bit interested in doing, particularly because, you know, developing software, programming, all that, you use your hands a lot. They're always at weird angles. So that's where I wanted to step in and try one of these. Now this is just a PCB, which is a template for, I guess if I hold it like that, it's 2 sides of a keyboard. This keyboard's split in half, connected by an aux cord. Kind of hard to see where it would start from here, but with all of the different components, see, this is a very, very unstarted project, but maybe a little bit interesting. We have the capacitors and the transistors for it. As well as a pack of LEDs. All of this has to be soldered onto the board, and I have not found a time where I want to sit still with burning lead fumes in my eyes for hours on end. But it's a very interesting one, and very, very difficult. in terms of like having to solder. I don't know if I can. I need something for scale for this. Perfect. I have a measuring tape here. So just one of these. Oh God, my webcam quality is not that good. It is about 2 centimeters in width, and there are 150 of them that have to be soldered directly into the board to have LEDs in your keyboard. I partly wanted to do this so that I would gain a respect for all of the amazing electronics that I have to do by torturing myself with it. So I think that's pretty fun there. And the other short project, which I sort of want to show pictures of, and honestly, I need to send these to SCESoc to get them printed. SCESoc has a 3D printing service, everybody, which is a server rack.
A free one
Because
too, by the way, just to put it out there. A free 3D printing service.
Yes. So it's a server rack, and I have the aluminum extrusion for it, which is just some like four bars of aluminum. And what's meant to happen is take a Raspberry Pi, put it in there. This is much less of a project showcase, but like it's a project proposal. If anyone wants to invest, this is for the investors, the stakeholders to come in, I guess. But take the aluminum extrusion, and it's made. It's really small for Raspberry Pis and stuff. I don't have infinite money. I already have a Pi running a Plex server right now and a couple Docker files. It's a Raspberry Pi 1, so it's not the fastest, and you kind of have to stop one. They are hard to get, yeah. And I want a 4 so that I can do a little bit more stuff. But with the basic 1, they're pretty fine. But it's essentially just taking all of these, putting them into a 6-inch server rack. So small apartment, not a lot of room, not a lot of power, easy to put there. And I guess the final thing on that is if anyone has a mini computer that they want to get rid of and don't want, let me know, please. Thank you.
How many?
Small, I don't know. Anything less than 15 inches is pretty good. Actually, wait, hold on. That's pretty big. 7. Yeah, I saw some on Kijiji, and like they were trying to sell them for like $100. And I was like, dude, this is literally from 2010. And he was like, yeah. Whatever. I was like, it's not gonna run anything. I just want to run Linux on it or something. I don't know. But just something more powerful than a Raspberry Pi, so I could use it because I have a couple of home automation apps I want to do. It's just general IT stuff. I don't know. Hopefully that's interesting. Actually, do you mind if I share my screen real quick, Darsh?
Go for it. No, definitely. I'll give you the privileges. Wait, what? I'm not host yet. Matthew.
That's not possible. How someone, oh, okay, you know what? See, the problem is now I'm on 2 different computers, but I left my other one in my other meeting. So now you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to give me a second. I'm really sorry. I apologize. This is not gonna exactly be easy.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right. We're getting there. 1 second. I swear I did attempt to give you host.
We can also change the settings. Like I could
Okay.
change them so it's set from host only share to all participants share. So I think
Okay.
anybody can.
Yeah.
No.
if
You
can do
are
that,
host now as
thank
well.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I think, okay, if Forrest changed that, then Ryan, you should have the ability to share.
I think I can. I just want to quickly show off some images of the keyboard because I think it is really cool. And what I wanted to do. And also only like $70, although you do have to do a lot of the work yourself, have a soldering gun, soldering iron, and I guess there's some experience with it. I mean, the last thing I soldered, I burnt a hole through it. So not that much experience, but it's just a really interesting thing that I saw. I noticed that I always have my wrist tilted in. So it's just like a really tiny keyboard. And one of the things that I really want to do on it is I use a timer for when I'm working on something, like 50 minutes doing it, 10 minutes off. Pomodoro is the name for that, if anyone wants that. Pomodoro, Italian word for tomato. And I just want to see if I can code it in there, and I believe I can, just with like its own operating system. Yeah, that is it. Hopefully that someone else is interested in that and I drum up business for them. I can
Looks
find a
like
referral link.
that. Looks like that keyboard has no numbers on it though. Like it's just the letters, keys.
I don't need numbers.
Is this like a keyboard inside of a computer kind of thing?
Inside of the computer, sorry?
Or sorry, a computer inside of a keyboard? Because it seems like you said it has its own OS.
So I guess not necessarily its own OS. It's the oh, I can't remember the name of it. It just comes with a the keyboard does not have an OS, but for like 10 extra bucks, you can purchase. Is my camera still on? My camera is still on. One of these extra like LCD screens.
Okay.
And that can go on there, and then like not rather than it being a computer with it, like this part is the computer, not the actual keyboard. The keyboard, like you don't need this. It can just be a keyboard, but I wanted to have a fancy logo or something on it.
That's really neat.
Yeah, I only type in 11. I don't use numbers. Although I do think the version that I have has numbers, but if anyone wants a link, I posted it in the chat.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay. Any questions apart from that? Going once, going twice. Okay. So is Peter here? Not yet.
I haven't seen
Anyone from the Edison project? No.
Wait, we still have to do Matt too, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. Matt, go ahead if you're ready.
Hello. Let's see if I can screen share on my PC. Is my screen visible?
It is small but visible. Yes.
How about now that it's like full screened?
No, we
We
only
can-
see
oh
Chrome.
no. Yeah. There we go.
Good now.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, my name is Matthew McCurbavel. I've been working on this project called SCESoc with a variety of different people over the course of the past couple of years. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm also going to focus a little bit on my attempts at managing development volunteers over the years. In all honesty, this project is actually pretty simple if you really think about it. It's basically just an app that lets you take multiple choice quizzes, but over the years, I've gotten a lot of different experience trying to work with teams of volunteers specifically. I wanted to share a bit about some of my like shortcomings and failures in trying to do that, and some of the things I think have worked and some of the things I think have gone relatively well. Sorry, my light just fell down and I had to pick it up while I was saying that, but I'll talk a little bit about discrete math first so I can give a bit of context. So discretemath.ca, I don't know if people in engineering have to take all these courses, but within CS, we have to take these discrete math courses, Comp 1805 and Comp 2804. The website currently features mainly content from Comp 2804, but we are looking to add 1805 over the summer. Basically what our website lets you do is it lets you view and like take practice versions of past midterms and finals from this class. So over the past year or so, we've seen what you're looking at here is the usage of the website at the midterms and exams. So you can see that a lot of our peak usage comes in around when either a midterm or a final comes up for the website, which is kind of cool. So we have like a lot of people who are genuinely interested in the project, which is really cool to see, as well as a lot of usage around, I don't know, the key times, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of funny, but it is what it is. A little bit about like the technical side of the project. The front end is written with Svelte. I chose Svelte for the front end because it allowed a bit more flexibility in some of the dependencies we could use when rendering specifically some of the math rendering libraries themselves didn't have like npm packages, so there need to be some weird janky stuff done to get that actually working, and to also work in such a way that it could work with like, I don't know, asynchronous function calls while loading in like CDNs while working with like different npm based dependencies. We have a Rails application. Rails was only purely chosen for development speed. It actually doesn't serve any there's no real good technical reason why we chose Rails other than for development speed. And it serves us like a GraphQL API, which can then be accessed through Svelte. And then finally, we sort of have like this this new Python-based REST service purely for writing generated questions. So another feature that's sort of been in development for the past while is, in addition to all of the sort of static content we have, like all the past midterms and finals, I've been working with volunteers over the past while to develop essentially like functions that generate the inputs and outputs of the various different questions you can find on these like midterms and exams, so that instead of just taking the same tests over and over again, you actually can practice the questions and try and learn the format instead of just, you know, purely memorizing like, oh, I pick A on this question or B on this question or C on X question, right? The reason why we have this as its separate as like a sort of separate service is because this service is written in Python or written with Fast API. It's allowed me to very easily get like first year students involved to write sort of like the simple logic behind like, please generate one of these sort of simple math problem type questions, and that's allowed for, you know, contribution to be a lot more accessible within our project, which is really interesting and something that, you know, would definitely take away as like a cool takeaway from this project. But another reason why we have it set up this way, or the reason why that one service communicates directly with the Rails service, is because it allows us to create one uniform type API or one sort of gateway API with our client. This means that we can actually seamlessly combine the static and generated questions all under one same interface. Which is really interesting and really cool. It means that like we could hypothetically, we're not doing this yet, but we could hypothetically say, I want like a few of these static questions of this variety, and I want a few generated questions of this variety to kind of like balance that all out, if you will. But other than that, really all this project is it lets you take multiple choice questions. It's fairly simple. It's if you've taken Comp 2 406, you may have even built a very similar application at some point. For that reason, I wanted to focus a little bit on some of my attempts at managing people over the time, or like working with different volunteers and contributors over the time, and some of the things I've like learned and taken away from that experience, so that maybe other people who are working on projects can I don't know, learn or like think about some of the things I've done over the years in some useful way. So yeah, a little bit about my volunteer effort attempts. About the first time we tried to do this, the first time we sort of had this like this website public was we first put it up for the fall of the 2021 term. Sorry, I just like thought about the dates. This year was 2021, right? We're fall 2021. We're winter 2022 right now. Okay, so these dates are wrong. I apologize. I made this presentation during the other presentation, so I was not paying attention to this. But the first time this website was ever public was in fall 2020. And at that time, it was a very simple, like black and white website. It just had the quizzes. There wasn't like anything else. And at the time, I had wanted to get some volunteers involved to try and expand some of the features. And what I did that year was I attempted to bring some volunteers on board in addition to some of the other stuff I was organizing at the time. And the strategy I took at the time, or what I initially tried to do kind of naively, is I attempted to have like one large group meeting with a bunch of volunteers. And some of the things that came out of this and some of the things that didn't were that one thing I found was a lot of things should not be done as a group when you're trying to manage development volunteers. Things like, for example, project setup, project onboarding are things that can become a very big struggle when you're trying to like discuss it with an entire group at once. Some people will feel ostracized because, especially in the development sphere, a lot of people are at different experience levels. So at times I'd be like showing them parts of the code and I'd be like, do you guys have a general, like, does this make sense to everyone? And some people I know wouldn't speak up because I was addressing a group and they didn't want to feel like, they didn't want to feel that maybe they didn't understand or understood less than the other people involved, which I didn't think was that great of an experience in hindsight. Definitely, like, again, tech setup was not very great. in hindsight, I really shouldn't have tried to, for example, bring on board a bunch of people all at the same time with like trying to set up, React and stuff like that, all at the same time like that, because it just didn't work out very well. It was definitely hard to schedule meetings when you have like a large group meeting. You can't sort of have individually scheduled meetings. So some people found it to be inconvenient. Some people would not show up because they were annoyed with the sort of out of their way scheduling in hindsight, which wasn't great. And I also found that if you have a group meeting and people don't show, and like maybe 1 or 2 of the 4 people doesn't show up to that meeting, it will actually end up discouraging the other people who did want to come to that meeting, because what they'll see is they'll see like, oh, there are other people who aren't wanting to be as involved as me, and they see that as like, oh, other people aren't as interested in this as me, and I think it brings the general morale of the group down, which isn't great. The summer of this year, so this past summer, okay, I took a different approach to a lot of what I was doing, okay, and this would be the summer of 2021, okay, not we were 2020, we're in 2020, I forget years apparently, I don't know why, I'm oblivious to how years work, but the summer of 2021, I took a very different approach. Instead of trying to attempt to have like groups of volunteers, I opted more for a one-on-one strategy with a lot of people. So I sort of individually talked to, it ended up being 5 people by the end, but I sort of reached out to specific people, and I basically made a very sort of clear commitment of like, hey, we're going to be working this project every week or so. We'll have like a one-on-one 30-minute meeting, which was really great. And some of the consequences that came out of this, or some like the benefits, where there's definitely a lot more like pair programming. It was a lot easier for me to address issues that people would have. So when it was a large group, if someone had like a setup issue, I'd have to, tell everyone else to wait a minute while I tried to help that person with their issue. With it being one-on-one, I could help people with their individual bugs and issues and setup problems. The scheduling was more specific, right? I could have a specific time slot with each person throughout the week. I ended up basically having like 1 volunteer for every weekday, and I would meet with each of them after work or something like that, which was really great. And I think the individual help made that volunteer feel more cared for, and just made them feel like they weren't having their time wasted, if you will. Some of the, I guess, the negatives of this, I would say that people definitely didn't feel like it was as much of a team effort. So I really never had my volunteers at that time talk to each other as much, because now that they were sort of individually siloed and I wasn't having some kind of like group meeting, I felt like people didn't feel like they were a part of a team, which helps in some ways, because it means that, like, for example, when you're having that one-on-one conversation with someone, they always respond to you. If there's 2 people in a conversation and you address them both, one of them might speak less than the other, one of them might speak more than the other, right? And I found that, again, like that one-on-one relationship definitely helped. It made it very easy for me to talk to that person because they knew I was talking to them. But I found that I guess the deficit was there was less of like a general like team dynamic. People sort of, I don't know, it felt more, I don't know, they felt kind of like in a box. They didn't get to have that social interaction I think a lot of people are longing for in an entirely online world, right? And it's something that I definitely want to address going forward when I'm trying to do something similar to this again. Another thing we did this time around was I had like a dedicated Discord, but one of the things I regret doing in hindsight is the way the Discord is set up is I tried to leave it completely open so that everybody could kind of, if they wanted to hear what we have, like more than one project going on. So if people wanted to see what the other projects were doing, they could sort of visibly see the activity going on. But one of the sort of deficits I found to this is because people didn't see, like there was a lack of visible activity throughout the year, or throughout at certain times throughout the year. I found a lot of people ended up just DMing me instead. And we didn't end up using the server that much because people could see that there wasn't that much visible activity. And because, again, we were having so many sort of like one-on-one based relationships, the need for these like large group channels wasn't as beneficial. And it sort of just like, again, I think had like some effect on morale in some vein, where people were like, oh, well, if no one's really chatting in here, then I don't really need to chat in here. And we just go back and forth in DMs instead, which I found wasn't as great. And it's, again, something I want to try and address with my like future iterations of this. Apparently, again, you can tell here my dates are just like absolutely like just non-existent, okay, right? But like I have fall 2021 to 2023. That should have been fall 2021 to 22. Okay, I'm talking about this school year, okay? So anyways, over the summer I had about 5-ish volunteers working on different development projects and stuff like that. For whatever reason in the fall I tried to do 10, okay? And this was probably a kind of a mistake, okay? This was not the best move on my part. I burnt out pretty fast having 10 weekly meetings. So what I was doing was every like lunch break, I would have a different volunteer meeting, every day after work, I would have a different volunteer meeting, and this is just too much for me to handle. And I also found that sometimes meetings would go over, so like I'd have to cut people off because I was trying to meet with people at lunch, and I'd have like a meeting after lunch, or like my work would interfere with things. Like it was definitely too much. So in hindsight, I've definitely sort of found this like sweet spot of like, at most I ever only really want to take on maybe like 3 to 5 people at a given time. Like it's just too much to try and handle more than that, in my opinion. The other thing that was definitely beneficial, something that I really took away from this sort of iteration, was a lot of the volunteers I was working with in the fall and the winter were specifically working on the question generation. And because they were working on like the question generation Python service, because it was written in Python, it felt a lot less intimidating for a lot of like first year students to get involved. And that sort of like ease of access definitely was something that I found benefited the project overall. It made it easier for people to come in, and they didn't really need a development background they didn't need to learn what an API was, or what, you know, all the fancy front end CSS stuff was. They could just write their Python function, the stuff they were doing in their first year classes, and still could feel like they were having an impact on the project, which is really great. So anyways, all of that taken into consideration, I guess some of like the future concerns or things I'd really like to do going forward with some of our projects. Definitely now, you know, having that stable number of volunteers for me, like making sure that I'm like, if I'm spreading myself too thin, what that does ultimately is it has a negative effect on like everyone who's involved. So if I'm spreading myself across 10 people, that means I'm spending less time. I'm spending half as much time with everybody in some way, because I just only have so much bandwidth, right? Like that just doesn't work out. You know, having that good number, but also I'm you know, I'm hoping to maybe get to the point where instead of just me doing these one-on-ones with people, I can have some of the more experienced people maybe work one-on-one with some of like the first year students or other students, to keep that keep the project scaling, because ultimately like there is a certain amount of like, the more people you do have involved, or the more talent you have involved, the quicker the project can progress, right? But at the same time, you also don't want to like have too many people, because then those people act as blockers. But definitely like maybe having some of the more experienced folk doing some of these one-on-ones instead of me doing like 100 one-on-ones will definitely hopefully alleviate that, and also maybe provide leadership experience to those people, so that maybe they can in the future take on more things within a project, you know, that kind of vibe. We're definitely going to be rewriting some of the project in for reasons that for just general resilience of the project in general. Like right now, the project, all the data is sort of treated dynamically, and there's benefits to that, but there's also like some trade-offs to that. One of the trade-offs is we have to like keep it deployed ourselves. Forest has been maintaining our like deployment infrastructure for the longest time. So what that means is right now our project kind of relies on Forest existing. So like if Forest died tomorrow, we'd be in trouble, right? Like that's not great. So the hope is that what I want to do with the project going forward is basically make anything that could be static, and then anything that is dynamic sort of feature flagged in such a way that if it broke, or that if we could no longer maintain that infrastructure, that the parts of the website that are still usable and valuable to people will work regardless of whether, you know, I or Forrest or other people who've been involved with this project are still present at Carleton, you know, after we graduate and stuff like that. And then one of the other things I'd really like to address going forward is, again, because I've sort of had this like one-on-one structure with people for the past while, I want to try and bring back that team feeling, that sort of team dynamic, because I feel really, you know, sad that I don't know, people don't get to like talk to each other as much. It like definitely works better for that individual person, because, you know, their time is being wasted a bit less. But I'd like to try and have like at least the option to try and build sort of like that team feeling. And I think one way that I'd like to do that going forward over like this next summer is I want to have sort of like open, like sort of optional group work sessions, sort of like in the Discord or something like that, like a way where maybe if they see me working, they'll want to join the call. We can like work and chat, you know, as we go through things. That way there's still the one-on-ones, where the one-on-ones kind of act as this like catch up type session for everyone. But at the same time, there's still this like chance for, you know, if people want to like act as a team or like want to sort of bond a bit better, we can still have that like open working relationship sort of, I don't know, in some way going. Because again, I think social stuff is cool. So yeah, the main takeaways are definitely that the one-on-ones helped a lot. Group meetings work well. They actually worked well with like people who are friends. So if people know each other, it's really good. But if the people didn't really know each other before doing a group meeting, it kind of acted as like a double-edged sword, because if, for example, they didn't know each other and then one person saw that another person didn't attend, that person would feel like a little more discouraged to work on stuff, which I don't know. It's just kind of nature of things, right? Definitely having like regular meetings. So the reason why I like the weekly one-on-ones is because, like, let's say I didn't have like a weekly structure, the minute I'm like out of my own cycle, like if I let it go 2 or 3 weeks and it's been 3 weeks since I've talked to that person, I feel like I'm kind of neglecting someone, like I'm not putting enough in for them, or like they feel ostracized. Like they sometimes won't, they'll think that they should be working on something and won't know to like ask me like what's going on. Like they won't like feel like they're in the loop, and they'll feel like there'll sort of be this like tragedy that commons are like, should I be reaching out to them? Should they reach out to me? Like they don't really know which way to go. And I feel like again, having that like sort of regular meeting structure keeps that going regardless. Even if, you know, at times like maybe the volunteer didn't do anything that week, that's like totally okay, right? Like, you know, that weekly meeting like aligns us so that we can like kind of chat with about like what's going on next, even if it's just like 15 minutes. I think that makes a pretty big difference. And I also think another really big takeaway is that there needs to be like a solid base in the project before you bring other people in. So we definitely saw like a lot of success with like when we had that like Python service, because that was set up in the summer. It was very easy for me to like just help first years use their already existing Python environments from 14.05 to just kind of come in and start working on that, because there was that base. You know, it wasn't like this awkward thing where I was like, hey, yeah, we're going to be working on this. Give me like 4 weeks to let me set this up for you or something like that. Like that's awkward. If you know, don't treat the volunteers kind of like a first class citizen and like don't try to, you know, accommodate them as a volunteer as much as possible, then it's kind of awkward. Like I want to make sure that everyone always has something to work on if they choose to, you know what I mean? Project sustainability, I already mentioned this one. Basically want to make sure that that project can still exist in some way after we all graduate. And then obviously the last one is making sure volunteers like have impactful work. So I definitely found like over the summer, there were certain times where like I gave people work where I felt like because that work seemed kind of like busy work or like kind of like not as impactful as some other work, that didn't give them the same kind of like morale boost. Like they sort of they could see that it wasn't like the most important thing in the world, and I felt like that sort of maybe discouraged people from wanting to partake as much. So in hindsight, like if I was in my next iteration of trying to do volunteer stuff, I'm going to try and make it so that I take on like a lot more of the like work that I don't think people would be as interested in taking on, mainly just so that I can hand out the work that I feel will make the people who are volunteering the happiest, so that again, because no one's being paid, right, they, you know, feel like they're empowered and feel like what they're doing is genuinely making a difference. And I feel like that, I don't know, really does kind of keep people involved and keep people interested in working on the projects. So yeah, anyways, that's like my bit. Hopefully, I don't know, someone found that info useful and wasn't just super rambly. If it was rambly, I apologize, but yeah, thank you for letting me talk. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer them.
I personally loved it. I think that was so much good information there. I guess as you know, SCESoc is trying to like, at least what I try to do this year is kind of like, you know, inspired by you guys. So no, this is really helpful to kind of like get an insight on what, you know, all your and I've been talking to you on the side as well about all these things. So no, this is this is amazing. So I learned a lot from it. I was going to ask like if you know, if the Blueprint people are still on the call, are they? Yeah, I'm curious how you guys, you know, what your thoughts are on this, you know, on this approach that Matt takes, and are you guys doing things a little differently? How are things working out for you? And you know, I'm curious what the dynamic there is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ashna's still on the call, but yeah, for sure. One thing I really liked was how you were able to like identify the key like pain points when it came to actual team dynamic rather than like the actual project development, but notice that there was actual problems when it came to like working as a team or working individually. I think we also ran into many of the similar problems like that. So we had to like completely like rework our how we like approach things as a team, and how we, you know, want to do things in meetings, and how we want to like divide up our time and things like that. So I think that certainly a lot of similar problems will come up when you're trying to work on a big project or on a big team. Yeah, Elias, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I've kind of, I've helped actually a few projects that Matt coordinated, and also Blueprint. This was back during the summer. What I kind of saw and what I kind of see is that, you know, some people talk about like, you know, the CCS thing was really easy to get into because it was open volunteering, but Blueprint is a bit more selective. Because, you know, we have the interview process and we have all of these things, right? I think what Matt does works really well because it's more of an internal thing, and he has complete control over, you know, what the projects are and things like that. Whereas Blueprint, like, we're more of an external group. So we're not working to make something for ourselves. We're working to make something for someone else, in a sense. So it's harder to justify the kind of, hey, anyone can just come in and contribute, because if it was internal, it'd be like, okay, yeah, we know these people, we're chill with them, but we're not working for ourselves. We're working for some external company. And so you don't want the company being like, hey, why are like 700 people working on this? And then one day they do something and then they leave. So I think it needs to be more exclusive in that sense. But like, I've joined a few clubs, like, like I think this, like the CCSS work, and as well, I'm in another, I was in another club, like the CU and Space Club. That's also an internal thing, and that's open volunteering. So anyone can come in and get, started on anything. 'Cause that's all internal. And I think that also relates back to, open source development, because again, that's all internal. That's not usually being done for, by some people for someone else. It's being done by them for them. And so I think that's where the kind of change in who is allowed to work on this comes from.
Yeah, I guess to give some context, like we don't really have a client. Our client is sort of the student base. Like all the projects I've sort of tried to push out are sort of, I'm not really like checking them with anyone other than myself, which is completely different than, like, I'm sure you guys have like a life cycle where you're showing the client, iterating based on what they say, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We everything I do is more, I look at it and I go, does this look pretty cool?
Yeah.
like definitely a bit more casual.
Yeah.
I try to keep everything, like, I try to keep things as open as possible in some vein, just to like my hope would be that it could get to a point where like things could actually be like open source in the way that you think of open source projects in like the general sense. But I've just found that it's really hard with like for people to feel like to get involved when it's just like issues on GitHub, like unless they're directly talking to me, unless I'm like sort of like showing them around the code base and showing them like, hey, here's like where this function lives and where this is causing this to hit this and that. Like I definitely, that's something that I think I want to invest some more time in trying to work out, like over the summer, like maybe having some like general resources for like how you could get involved. But the time investment of also maintaining like open source issues is a lot more than it seems like once, like in the summer there's more time to like do things. I think I overestimated how much time I had with everything like this school year, because I don't know, I just like, you very quickly get in the cycle, and the idea of like doing things that are irregular definitely feels a bit off-putting. Like when you're doing those like regular, like maybe meetings with people, right, because it's regular and you're used to it, it doesn't sort of feel like it's taxing on you. But maintaining like open source issues, for example, because there's maybe like 20 in 1 week or like one that other week, right, and that sort of irregularity for me feels kind of like hard to follow up on, or like hard to maintain, I guess, because it's, I don't know, there's just no way you can like really plan for it, I guess, is something that, although I'd like really like to push it in that direction, I found that it's just been easier for me to like I honestly sometimes I won't even have everything ready for like when I meet with a volunteer. Like it's just like a way, like it's also a catch up, not just for like the volunteer, it's also like for me. And I think that's why that sort of also helped, because I don't know, it kind of goes both ways, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully those insights mean something. I don't know, something like that.
No, definitely. One last question, like maybe you can make this one quick because we have one more person to go at least. So how do you find your first 5 people, and what do you recommend on that process looking like?
Honestly, it was like pretty much like we had our like we have like our like this one year we had our elections, right? And then I basically just asked some of the people who had already like because we have our elections, and the elections are sort of like this people who know they're committing to about a year's worth of work. I asked those people if they wanted to be involved first, right? And then some of those people had friends, and then that sort of formed like the initial sort of group, if that makes sense. In the fall, I sort of left it be more open. Like I had like just an application form, and I found that people, if I was meeting with them on a regular basis, like we're pretty, I don't know, I found that everyone was pretty like good about being consistent. I don't know, like I know that sounds, it's not the same, but I don't know, I think that was sort of like the the takeaway there would be, because I already sort of knew that people were willing to be that committed, that they wouldn't mind, for example, doing some work in the summer. Because I know that, for example, some people might not want to do things over the course of the summer because, you know, people want to take vacation, people want to travel, stuff like that. So I kind of use that as like my launching off point, if that makes sense. I also knew these people had like development backgrounds, so like that also helped, right? With stuff in the fall, I left it open to a lot more like first year students because I wanted to experiment with that. But it's a bit more challenging, especially when, you know, people like, for example, are just learning Python or something like that, you know, like you see like sort of the types of things you have to like help people with is definitely kind of different. But I don't know, overall, yeah, I don't know. The first 5 people I kind of use the election thing. That's like my, I guess my response to that question.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. No, that's really insightful. But yeah, I guess we can skip the last person who is going to be Lorraine from the Edison project. Lorraine?
Hey, hi, my name's Lorian. I'm from the,
Oh, my
what we
bad.
call ourselves the Edison Self-Driving Car Team, or the ESDC. I am the head software lead for the program. This initiative started last year when, with the goal of creating a self-driving car that would go around campus. So it would help people, more disabled people, kind of get around campus easier between classes and such. So if you want to learn more, you can go to our Discord channel there. But as a software lead, I can give you guys a little tech demo of the things we do. So we use this self-driving car simulator called Carla. And what Carla does is it's this Unreal Engine simulator that kind of places a car, and it has a ton of different capabilities. Let's see, I can show you guys some stuff if you like. So here's the Carla simulator. If I go ahead and hit play, it'll start the simulation. And so this simulator is how we plan to get all of our different sensor data. So we can collect pictures that are going to be used later in neural networks to identify different parts of the road. And it is also includes a suite of LiDAR sensors, so we can get an idea of what the surroundings looks like. If you just give it a second to start up. Ah, there we go. So currently in simulation, and then if I just so I can run this example script here. It just drops a car right in the middle of the road, and it gives me driving capabilities, and you'll see I'll cross lines and stuff, and it can detect if lines are broken. We have our little street light there. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Wait, are we supposed to see a car or something moving?
Yes, I'll double check.
Oh, sorry. No,
let it-
I see the street lights, not car. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, 1 second. I'll just restart it with the whole window. There we go. Okay. Now you guys can see it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So here's an example of a fun little example script that the Carla simulator comes with. You can just drive around. You see all your stats on the left side. And if I close that, you can. There's also another really cool demo. Just give me a quick second to locate it. As you can see, this is just like a demo map of what they have. So it's like a full-fledged city with traffic lights and buildings and such. And I think eventually we're going to create our own map that is of Carleton University to help simulate the surroundings. Give me a sec and I'll pull up the script for, I believe it's that one. So with this, Unreal Engine is obviously, it's C++ native. However, the Carla library allows us to make Python scripts for it. So if I open that script up, it should bring up a cool little thing that demonstrates how the LiDAR works. Yeah, there we go. So see here, we can retrieve sensor data on the LiDAR, and each different color represents the intensity of light coming back. And from this, we can make out our surroundings. So these are just like a couple of the cool things that we're doing. We're also working on getting hardware to actually drive by wire. So I actually have this site here that we're currently looking into. See, I can't see the chat, so I'll stop sharing for a sec. If you guys want to check that out, that is our current solution that we're working towards for the actual automation of the vehicle. This works with different Kia models and Ford models, I believe. So hopefully we'll be getting that kind of car in the near future. But yeah, this drive-by-wire lets you plug in just like any old USB device and you can run a whole car off of it. And then on top of that, we're using a Raspberry Pi cluster to process all of our sensors and also probably be a pass-through for all of our programming to go into the drive-by-wire. And that's mainly it. That's the gist of our little club. Started last year. Hopefully we'll continue strong.
Something to add there is, so the Edison project and SCESoc are going to be collaborating on a project about Carla on Saturday. So if you want to learn more about the Carla software, definitely show up on Saturday at 12 p.m. noon. Yeah, and then maybe you can ask some more questions there as well. So yeah, just a small shameless plug in there. Anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask how many people are working on this project?
It kind of fluctuates, if I'm being honest. We have about 6 solid executive members, and then on top of that, we probably have like another 10 members that consistently show. So it's fairly small for now. We're hoping to get some more recruitment going in the new year.
And like, what was the inspiration to start this project?
As far as I know, it was a fairly spur of the moment concept. I don't know the whole history of how it started. I just know last year there was a student, his name was Rafid Dewan, and he was working with Professor Atia on something, and they decided that having a Carleton autonomous vehicle would be a good idea. And so they started this autonomous vehicle initiative.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments? Cool. Thank you, Lori. That was really cool. One last thing, I guess, before we leave, I was going to demo something on SCESoc side as well. So I'll do that quickly, not take up too much of your time. It's been 2 hours already. I was just going to demo my website as well, just to kind of like talk about it a little bit. I'll maybe go talk about that first. Let me move that there. Yeah, so first thing I just want to talk about is like my website and why I think websites or your personal website is such a cool first project. If at all you're like wondering if you're in software or like interested in building software and like web, and if you're not sure what to build, I feel like building your own first personal website is really amazing because it's kind of like your very own playground to experiment, to learn, to portray your skills and so on. So just to, if there's anything, if you're not sure what to work on, and if you are into kind of like, interested in kind of web development, definitely go ahead, build your own first website. And I personally have a small blog in here, small Today I Learned section where I just share, small things that I learned maybe once in a while. And then a small bookmark section where I share like, interesting tools and, bookmarks of different things that out on the internet that I think are cool. So the way this works, where the data for all this comes is from Notion. I've just connected, connected it to the Notion API to query my Notion database to bring in all that information from there. So I have my bookmarks, my Today I Learns, my blogs, and it's kind of a quick and easy way to kind of set up, a kind of a CMS. CMS, for anyone who doesn't know, is a content management system. So the website, so it's like the data that's being displayed on here. Yeah, just to kind of like throw this out there, I personally really like this kind of dashboard kind of layout for a website. I thought it was pretty cool. I stole it from Brian Love from who's one of the mobile developers in GitHub. No, he's mobile designers or something. But yeah, I dismiss. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. And apart from that, I also wanted to quickly talk about two initiatives that we started at SCESoc this year that are very much, I feel like, still in its very initial stages. Kind of like, the goal here is, the first one is Makers Club, which is kind of like, trying to bring together communities and people that, are working on projects and kind of like surface projects that are being worked on as well. I feel like, this event is kind of like a very inline event to our initiative here, which is to kind of like really encourage, support, and surface projects that are being worked on in the community. So the goal here is kind of just like try to have a small community that can like support each other, be hold each other accountable, and kind of like be a kind of a backbone to any kind of all the communities in Carleton that are working on projects. And basically, it's something that started within SCESoc. And it's obviously like open to like the entire Carleton community. One thing that we added here recently is kind of like a project showcase page. So far, the only project on here is the knowledge base, which is a project that SCESoc is hosting as well, which is basically a repository of knowledge. I'll talk about it later. But the goal here is to also like host all your guys' projects here and other projects that are being worked on the community on this page as well. So once it's added, it looks something like this, where there's a small README section, links to your GitHubs, your whatnot, and links to connect to people as well, and who the makers are. If the makers are are people rather than organizations, like those pictures and information can also show up here. You can also click on these things. So ultimately, what this is basically a just a markdown file to add a new project. So all you have to do is kind of add a markdown file that looks like this. I have a template here as well that you can use. I can show you the raw file. And all you have to do is just add a little bit of information, what the title is, what the start date, things like these. You can add, most of these are optional. You don't have to add every single one of these. I just have all of them there so that you can add as much information to the website as possible. And then you can have like your some sort of README as your main content on here. I guess it might be easier to kind of show this on this layout so that it's actually syntax highlighted. Okay, there we go. Yeah, this looks a lot better. But yeah, it's most of this is just data about what a project it is, what the technology is using. You can add tags and things like that. And then you can write a bunch of content about your project. And hopefully this is a way for people to discover your project and maybe even reach out to you and collaborate with you, and hopefully bring about a very supportive community in Carleton. So that's the goal here. If any of you are interested in helping out, or have any comments or feedback on this, definitely let me know. And the other thing that we worked on this year is a knowledge base as well, which is basically just kind of a a documentation. So we use Gitbook, which is basically a documentation tool. But the goal here is just to have a repository of knowledge, created by and for the community. So anyone can add information on here. There's two ways you can add information on here, which is one through Gitbook. There's again a page on how to contribute here. There's two ways to do it, either through Gitbook, which is kind of probably a recommended way, which is because it's easier. Whereas if you wanted to do it through GitHub as well, you can always just create markdown files on GitHub. And ideally, like, this is anything, any kind of information that you think would be useful for the community, whether it's related to academics, as long as you're not obviously violating any kind of academic integrity, but any kind of any knowledge that you might have learned over the past years that you want to share to the community. This is a space that you can share it as well. I'll share these links on the chat, but this is also this Gitbook is connected to GitHub. And I guess I can show you what Gitbook looks like, just to show you guys if you're interested. it's a cool way to, even if you guys are, are a society and want to kind of also host a bunch of internal wikis and, have a place for meeting notes and things like that. You can also have like private pages as well. And you can kind of just add information on there. If you had like a constitution that you wanted to like write up in, into this Git book, and that way it's also source controlled through GitHub and it's also a very clean way. I feel like Google Docs can get quite a little bit scattered and hard to manage. I feel like this is a really cool way to do it, and Gitbook also offers this service for free for student clubs. So yeah, just something I wanted to share. But I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, ask away. But apart from that, I think we're pretty much done for today. And yeah, any questions before?
Oh, that was really cool. Thanks, Darshan.
Thank you. Bring back my. Am I still sharing? Yeah, stop sharing. There we go. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. This was such an amazing event. Before we leave, actually, we should probably choose the lucky winners. Let me do that. I forgot to share my screen again. Obviously, I go under the top secret section here. So did I get everyone presented here today on here, except for SCESoc execs? I think I did. If I'm missing anyone's name, please let me know.
Sam, you don't want to fund my beautiful D&D campaign?
I will fund it to you in whatever currency you use in the campaign.
Gold. Thank you very much.
Virtual gold is what I mean.
All right, fair enough.
Imaginary. But yeah, so we get 3 winners out of these 6 people, and 3 of you guys get $50 that you can only spend on projects. So what the way it'll work is you buy whatever you want to buy, send the receipt. We'll share more information, but you basically share the receipt with SCESoc, and SCESoc will reimburse you for it, as long as it's something related to some kind of project, some kind of educational material. So further details will be given to you guys directly. So are we ready? Are we excited? I want to hear a woohoo or something on the chat. Okay, let's go. So the first person who wins is Peter. So these are people from the Edison project. So you guys get $50 to spend on whatever you guys want in terms of your projects. Hopefully this can fund you guys. It's obviously you guys' project is huge, and this is probably a small amount in what you guys actually need to get your projects done, but hopefully this helps.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's used well.
Yeah, awesome. No, we're looking forward to what you guys use for. And second up, Forrest. Congrats. Okay.
This will go to the Halloween edition of the Rusty Christmas tree. We'll get some spooky videos for y'all. All right.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Awesome. Amazing. And the last person is Carlton Blueprint. Congratulations, guys. And thank you so much for everyone, that showed up and presented. Yeah, like this has been an amazing project showcase. There was so many different diverse projects, and I hope, I definitely learned a lot from you guys. And, like hopefully you guys had the same with other projects that you've seen here. But I guess if someone really wants to, present another project, and if people are free to leave now, but if you guys still want to hang around and talk about a certain project that you worked on, but you might not have signed up, we can always, I don't mind staying back a little bit to kind of like see what you guys are working on. But otherwise, it's adios for now.
Yeah, thank you,
Awesome.
everyone. That was a lot of great, like very interesting projects. It was
What? No.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you guys for hosting this. I came to the one last year and it was super, super cool. So I'm glad I came again this year, and I hope I'll attend the one next year. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Great.
Have a good night, guys.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Darsh and Jacob, for hosting this. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, thank you, Darsh, for leading this. This was yeah,
No, man, this was amazing. It was teamwork.
teamwork.
There's so many parts of this I was confused about, constantly breaking your head. So no, it's teamwork. There's two Matthews. Wow.
Yep.
One of them.
Because it's my other computer. Because remember, I like had to switch halfway through.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm on my PC, but like I had to leave myself on the Mac because what really happened, okay, is I use the same monitor for both. So I was like HDMI did on the Mac. So I changed the input, went unplugged the keyboard and mouse from the Mac, went under my desk, plugged them into my other computer. Like I did a transition there. All right, like there was some stuff going on.
Damn.
Nice, nice.
Appreciate the hard work though.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If others are interested, can I show off another project?
100%. Yeah.
All right. It's the second project, so I don't, like if others want to show off stuff, that's like I'm totally down to yield the floor to others. But and also don't know if I talked about this last time. Let me share my screen here. Firefox. Did I talk about Valorant last time? Video game?
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe.
Probably. I think
I talk about it at a lot of places.
Yeah. Is there any other project that you could have talked about? Because I do feel like this is what you talked about.
Oh, okay. In that case, well, what I'll do, I probably showed off graphs and stuff. I'm trying to think of like, I could show off finance stuff. That might be cool, like game server finances and stuff.
You can do both. Like
all right.
Like
all right. So TLDR,
yeah.
I work on a game called Valorant. It's open source. It's in Rust as well. And I do like a lot of outreach stuff. And so I give talks at a lot of different places about it. So I've probably given a talk that either you might have heard of before or whatever. So I won't go into that. If you look up Valorant talks on YouTube, you'll find lots of stuff.
I've seen quite a few.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love how active you are in the community.
Good stuff. Yeah. And so it's like a really great opportunity for me because like when I started working on the project, it was still like in its infancy, and that was a time that I could like start writing blog posts. And so maybe I'll make this like a lessons learned type thing. And so essentially, I've been editing a blog post for 162 weeks in a row now. And what we've found is that this is like one of like the really big motivating factors behind a lot of people continuing on with the project and being able to get started with the project. And so if we could just go into like a random one here, I don't know, this might be short. Well, there's some stuff here. It was cool. So we started doing something recently called the Valorant Reading Club. And so the idea behind this is it's an opportunity for devs to be able to come in and talk about topics that like are important for the game. And so in this most recent one, it was talking about using Git. It was talking about some of the other ideas behind Git, but then also like the person I was sort of interviewing here is like one of the core developers who does the economy simulation in the game. And so he showed us like the spreadsheet he uses for taking a look at like supply demand between different villages in the game. I guess I'll give a little bit of context for people who don't know. It's like Minecraft, but more adventure mode and a lot of like procedural generation stuff. And so it's built without an engine. It's built to be like you have voxels, and then off the distance you can see mountains because we build our map ahead of time. It's a finite sized map, and so it takes like, let's say like 20 minutes to walk across, maybe 30 minutes, I don't know. But because we build it ahead of time, because we do erosion, then we can have like a mountain map that sort of represents what the mountains look like off in the distance. So we can show that kind of stuff off. And so it's much more based around you going off and having an adventure with your friends rather than doing a lot of stuff by yourself. And so these reading clubs have given an opportunity for people who might have looked at a massive 300,000 line code base and said, like, I have no idea how to get started with this, and instead see how the devs actually interact with it. And so if I go to the YouTube channel and take a look at our other videos, we have other reading clubs. So we did like a big one was like the Spotson World Generator, and actually the Site 2 system. And so our villages, you have like houses in a village, right? And when you want to procedurally generate a village, you'll start like at the foundation. You'll say, okay, we're going to place it, this place in the world is flat enough, that's fine. And then we're going to start breaking it down. So we'll add some streets. We'll add actually, this is a perfect picture. So we'll add some streets, and then we're going to place houses on these streets. Okay, well, if we want to procedurally generate a house, that could be a lot of work. And so what we do instead is we use a technique called CSG, which stands for something that someone could Google and put in chat maybe. But the idea is like you can combine geometry and then have results. So if you take the union, this might be the union, I don't know all the syntax, but it's like the square minus the circle. Oh wait, no, it's a circle, it's one of those two. But essentially you can combine shapes and stuff like this and get really interesting shapes in the end. So we just took cylinders and circles and and squares, we got this shape. And so this video talked about like how we can use these techniques to build houses and what like sort of API we've used to abstract away some of the complexities of the math. And you can just say, I have a cube, I have a circle, I put them together, and now I have the roof of a house or something like that. And so what we've seen for this is we got a lot of contributors being able to come in and use these techniques to really explore doing a lot of creative stuff like this on their own. And so that was really cool. Valoran Reading Club is awesome. But then the big idea about the blog is if we have the opportunity each week for someone to come in and talk about, trying to find one that doesn't have just like me writing stuff. Some of them are a bit shorter, some are longer. Let's look at like this one maybe. Okay, so Zester is like the world gen lead of the project. He founded the project. And so he was talking about like this tracking issue for world gen. And so anybody can go look at that, see like, okay, well, what are like the main things that we're looking at for contributions? What needs to be worked on? So for the giant trees, we need radius interpolation, and we need, we're building new sites. And so like, as I mentioned, we have those CSG shapes that we're putting together. Well, how are we going to build other stuff like sea chapels, or I don't know how to pronounce the rest of this, cultist structures? And so by giving devs a weekly opportunity to show off the stuff that they've been doing, not only are the core developers able to sort of flex the cool stuff that they've been working on, but people who aren't core developers and who have just sort of joined the project and have something that they want to talk about, they have a platform that a lot of people read. And so for us, this has been a way to really reward the people who have worked on the project, and not just the developers. Like people can come in, I post art, like pictures, screenshots that people take every week. And so this has really given the open source project a bit of a heartbeat where people can see, oh, there is something happening at a weekly cadence. So that's one side of things. And then the other side is like we host a server. I probably showed this off if I gave a talk last time, but we have like Grafana has all these nice graphs of the server, and anybody can go here, grafana.valoran.net. So I'm going to go to the game server, and we can take a look. We can see there's like 40-ish players online right now, like, okay, 26 online. We can see how many chunks we have. This is what we call like in Minecraft, you have chunks, and we have chunks too. But the thing is, like, we extend past like -256 to 512 or whatever. Minecraft probably does more by now, whatever. But we have a chunk, which is that entire column, and then we have chunks, which are sub cuts of each, so that we don't have to render the entire thing. We can see like CPU stuff, networking, server memory. We're getting some interesting spikes. This is probably not great. So we can zoom in on this and take a look. Okay, so over the period of 10 minutes, it jumps up 300 megabytes. And then I can like go in and like look at it more. So server stuff is cool, but let's take a look at some of the finances. And so I'm the one who like collects all the finances, and I haven't recorded stuff since November 2021. I mean, I've been paying for service and everything, but I just haven't put it down here. So I haven't like gotten reimbursed. But it's sort of interesting because this is also publicly available. I think I linked to it from probably the Valoran website somewhere. I show off like all the donations we've made or that we've gotten per month, like how much is getting donated. And so back May 2020 when we started, like a bit after that, it was like $150 US, $100 US, 225, $250 US, and so on. And we had like a month right here where Red Hat donated $1,000, and so that's why we got like this exponential spike. But we're not about to become millionaires. That's not what's happening here. And so with finances, we pay for some servers in a data center in Hetzner in Germany, and so we have this dedicated server that is just running all the time, always 59 euros a month. And it has like a AMD 3700X or something like that. So 16 cores, and we run like a lot of our website infrastructure type of stuff on there. But then
how many people use the thing, if you don't mind me asking? How many people play at a time, I guess? How many daily active users you have? Or
yeah, so that's a great question. Daily active, like unique users, I'm not sure off the top of my head. So we can see right now we're about 40. If let's go like last 7 days or something. Let's see if we got a spike. We got a spike right here, and it went up to like 65, 70 or something. The highest average we've seen like that, like it's just extended for several days, was like 90-ish. And then the highest ever at a release party, which is like we released 0.12, and we had 195 people on the server at once. And so like daily unique users, hard to say. In the future as well, we definitely want to see like more infrastructure being built out so that like we have our server in a data center in Hetzner in Germany. And that's great for people in Europe. It's able to handle like more people than we have online right now, but it's not geolocated very well for people in North America, South America, Asia, Oceania, and so on and so forth. And so for that, one of the things I'm sort of working on is exploring what types of things we need to add to the game to make it easier to be able to find a server as close to you and have more servers hosted. And so stuff we need is like a server browser. Like when you boot the game, you can put in a server IP, but like a server browser would be good. Having a better infrastructure that's more distributed. And so right now we have like, actually I can, I'm thinking, is there any reason for me not to like just SSH into a server? We can take a look at it. It's hardish with Zoom, I guess. Yeah, okay. And so it's running pretty bare on Linux. It's running in a Docker container, but it's really nothing fancy. We don't have any orchestration on top of it. And what I mean by orchestration is like, if I wanted to deploy a new server, I'd have to go install Docker on it. I'd have to get a Docker container running. I'd have to set up the ports and stuff like that. Orchestration can look like Kubernetes, or my preferred one is Nomad. And so this is what I use for like discretemath.ca. And the idea is that I can say, I have like these 10 servers, they all have Nomad installed on them, and I want to deploy a Docker container of Valorant to each of them. And it does it super easily. And so that's like sort of what I want to see. And we can like build out infrastructure. We can start using trying to go for get more donations and trying to like just have an infrastructure that's more global. And so this is like one of the big things I'm focusing on, because month to month, like we're definitely not using so much. We're getting like $147 US is what we're spending on servers in October 2021, and we made $160. And then whatever happened in November, we made like 443, which is more than normal, and we only spent 144. And even in months where we had like a release, then like, okay, like 118. So like 150 is on the high end at this point, 150, 219. This was probably, okay, yeah, we were doing like a lot of testing on different servers and stuff like that probably. Oh, we were paying for, oh yeah, okay. So here's like another like interesting little meta thing. We have to, so when people go and download the game, it's about 200 megabytes every time that there's an update. It used to be that there was nightly updates. And so, or not even nightly, it's just anytime someone pushed to the master branch, then you'd have to go download a new version if you were going through a launcher. But we changed it so that it's once a week that something else comes out, but that's still 200 megabytes that everybody has to download. And our server that we're hosting it from, which is our dedicated server, it has gigabit internet. It is a dedicated server, but Hetzner's peering isn't so great. And so what that means is for people who might be located wherever in the world, sometimes they'll get like super slow, like less than a kilobyte per second download speeds from our server. And I don't know how network infrastructure works all the way around the world. If we had BIT people here, they'd be able to educate me on that. But essentially, I think data centers have to pay a certain amount to get good peering speeds from one interchange, one internet interchange. So like there's one like Frankfurt, there's one in I think like Helsinki, like the basically big internet hub where all the internet comes and goes from and stuff like that. And so Hetzner doesn't pay a ton for it, so we lose a little bit on there. And so instead, what we figured out is Velar and GitHub is that we can just use GitHub releases to use as a CDN, which is like a really good strat. So we have all of our builds right here, and if I go and like try to download all these, like look at that speed, 30 megabytes per second, awesome. So we can get like people just go reference this link and they're good to go pretty much. And as far as we know, this is like a fine way to go, because GitHub, like when you think of downloading software, a lot of times it's directly from GitHub releases. And so it's definitely like designed to be a CDN that can handle a lot of stuff. And so like we have it 17 days ago, there was this version released or whatever. Maybe there should be like, I get like a ping every week. Okay, yeah, like nightly, like 5 days ago type of thing. And so this will update every week, I think. So this is sort of how we handle like the downloads and stuff like that for the time being. In the future, Cloudflare has this new service that they're working on called R2. I don't really know when it's coming out of beta, but it's like this. It's like S3, where you can like store stuff, except their prices are like absurd. it's like you pay for storage of the thing, and then you pay almost nothing for like getting people to download it. Whereas like DigitalOcean, Spaces, and AWS S3 is like super duper expensive. And so that's our current strat. We're just trying to like get by with what we can do. But also an interesting thing is that we don't actually use GitHub as our main repository. We have like 2,000 stars on here, but it is a mirror, which I don't know why we don't have linked. It should like, it'd be much more helpful, I suppose, if I changed it up so it's somewhere else. But we can go here and see it's on GitLab is where we have like the main project. And so this is where we do all the development, where we have our issues and everything like that. And so, yeah, I've kind of like gone off the rails here. I'll wrap it up here just because I have given talks for hours about a lot of this stuff, and I could keep going, but it's already 8:30 almost. And so if there's any questions, I'm happy to look at any of them. I don't know if there's anything in chat. I've not
mentioned like that thing about the web service, it's the opposite. Like you're mentioning that it's like you pay for like having things in but not uploading. Was that which is the inverse of what an S3 is? Was that what you said?
Yeah, so cloud,
like why would they have a reverse pricing model? Like what benefit does that serve them? Like
it doesn't serve them, but the way that they sold it is like the idea that there are a lot of artificial charges that people pay when you're doing bandwidth over the internet. So if you're hosting servers somewhere, then you're paying charges. Your egress, however much people download from you, is based on a lot of arbitrary fees that different interchanges have with one another. And so this type of thing is part of the bandwidth alliance, which is Cloudflare trying to say, let's get rid of a lot of these different fees. And so trying to reduce fees on bandwidth. And there's like a lot of people who have like signed with this, or like saying they're part of it. And so like we got like Alibaba Cloud, Linode, Oracle, Azure, maybe GCP, not Amazon. AWS likes making you pay a lot. And so definitely like, so this is one of the things that like what they're offering is very much a too good to be true from what they're saying right now. I'm trying to find the pricing. Okay, Cloudflare will be priced at 0, so storage of gigabyte per data per month. But then I don't know where the second part is, but it's like, okay, so you pay to have something on their servers, but then you pay very, very little to have
like the actual traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's interesting. And it's just like a general, like people are just trying to make the world a better place type thing.
That's what they're saying. Now they've said that there's people using it like R2 in beta. They say, like I emailed them, they say it's going to release in a few months. But that being said, like I do not know that like this will be a game changer if it is like as good as they promised back in September.
Do you know like the story of like how electricity like came to be the way it is or something like that? I don't actually know like the full lore. Like I'm pretending like I know this, but basically my understanding is like electricity is a similar thing where basically like, please, if I got the people's names wrong, I'm dumb, but like Nikola Tesla or something, with that guy, right? Basically he was going to make electricity free for everybody. Then Thomas Edison had like investors who basically like screwed him over and then made everyone actually have to pay for electricity or something. So like electricity was going to be this like free commodity, like that was like how it was actually going to be structured or something. But then like basically, you know, capitalism like wiped it out or whatever. Like I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, so I don't know the lore, but history does tend to repeat itself. And so I think that I don't know. Capitalism, making money on stuff that you can make money on is like what companies like to do.
It's almost like moving from a enterprise kind of situation to like a consumer situation here, because like Google Cloud or like OneDrive. I mean, what am I saying? Google Drive. It's like you pay for storage, but like you don't pay for any. It's like, I guess, I don't know, that kind of an like, you know, that's the only comparison I can I don't know, that came across my head.
I don't know. We just like intrinsically, like when you host stuff, I mean, when we think of like data costs and stuff like that, like when at home we have unlimited internet, and it's just because we tend not to use that much over a month that the internet service provider would care. But sending stuff over oceans, like and like the fiber optic wires and stuff like that, does incur some type of fee, and just like infrastructure building, whatever. Like Cloudflare runs a lot of the internet, so I think for them, they're in a good place to say, we are going to do this, and then hopefully other things follow suit. But that being said, I also haven't heard anything of the Bandwidth Alliance for several months, and so it would be really cool. And maybe it is an archaic fee. I don't know how much it actually costs. I have not found a way to easily learn about how peering and interchanges and internet at this level works.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, it's mind-boggling to think about. I was going to ask you, I mean, just like in general, first of all, about like Valorant. It's crazy how well like you entice the community in a sense. Like, I don't know, what are like a couple things that you feel like are really valuable, or things that you've learned through this process of like engaging Valorant's community that I know would be helpful for some other people, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a really good one. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is the power of having, or like the value in having someone who is like very dedicated to writing a blog, putting out content, doing outreach, going to do talks, being excited about the game and stuff like that. Because even though I'm a core developer and I've worked on a decent amount of systems relating to like continuous integration and Git stuff and like just other stuff here and there, I haven't actually touched the core code base a ton. I've done like some stuff on it, but not a ton. And so for myself, like I've heard from like far more people than I thought how much they appreciate the role that I do in making sure that there's like a blog each week and trying to like boost like the developers as much as possible. And so I think for myself, this has definitely taught me like how invaluable it is to have someone who's actually good at doing outreach and showing stuff off and giving a way for people to find out more about the project. And so I think that's like the biggest thing. And then past that, of course, like it's very much like self-fulfilling prophecy. A lot of people came to work on this product because it's in Rust, and then we like the features that Rust gives us in terms of safety, in terms of concurrency, in terms of different ways to think about data, that it has allowed us to become like one of the largest flagship games in Rust. And like even projects, like we're definitely one of like the largest things out there. Overall Rust project, there's a lot in a lot of different fields. So I don't want to say like we're a flagship there, but within like the game development ecosystem, we're definitely like an example that a lot of people will point at. And so for us, we've been able to sort of really evangelize a lot more what has Rust given us that we couldn't have done in another language, or in game development, what would we have been obstructed by? And so like for us, like the fact that we're able to work so fast as a project where we have like a ton of commits each week by a ton of different people. And like in the blog each week, if we take a look at just like any of them at the beginning, I'll always say like, thanks to this week's contributors. And I'll just do like a Git timeline search of the several people who have like committed that week or like made contributions. And like, I would like a better way to make like more art, like get more artists into this list because it's difficult when like an artist might not commit. But when it comes to like the speed at which we're able to do stuff, this is very, very specifically because of how strict the Rust compiler is. And the fact that when our, like one of the big guarantees behind Rust is like, if your code compiles, it will probably run. And so when someone's code compiles and they merge it into the main branch and then the master branch, then it will probably run quite well with everybody else's code. And so there's definitely that like self-fulfilling prophecy of like, you like something, you like the things you like about it, and then it makes you like it more or whatever, like that type of thing. And other than that, I think the place, also like the places it's gotten me. And so because of the stuff that I've done with Lauren, I've been able to reach out to the like Rust game dev ecosystem more. And so I started like contributing to the Rust game dev blog or like newsletter once a month. And then I started like writing more and more sections. And then the editor invited me to also become an editor. And then through that, I got added to here. If we go Rust Lang, we can go to here, we can go to like governance. And if you look in like the game dev working group, you'll see, ooh, there I am, very cool. And so I got invited to this group. And then because of that, this guy who works at AWS talked to another AWS employee and told him that like I'm a good person to talk about the Rust game dev ecosystem at like a Rust meetup. And this other person is Nico Matsakis, who is like a really, really core like Rust contributor. He's done like a lot of like the stuff with the borrow checker. And so it was amazing when I got to start working with him to like run this other internal Rust meetup. And so for me, it's been like I've been able to get super deep into a lot of the community-oriented stuff of Rust, and I've been called by some of the other contributors of the Rust language. I've been called a contributor, even though a lot of the stuff that I do is very community-oriented. And so for myself, it's been like a really great climbing ladder to get like super integrated into like the actual development of the language in a way. Yeah, so I think those are like my top 3 type of things, I would say.
Really cool. Like, would you say that, like Rust being such a new and like, exciting thing contributed to like, I guess growing or like, being, I guess, that engaging with the community in a sense? You think that plays a big role?
Yeah, so this is a really great question, because one of the things, like if you've heard about Rust, you probably didn't hear about Rust from like maybe some blog or something. You probably heard it from like another Rust developer telling you how cool Rust is. And so there's this really big idea, and like if I look it up, actually I don't want to trust Google, whatever. Rust evangelism, Strike Force. If you Google that, you'll get like a really cool logo, and like so it's more of like a meme of like how much people who like Rust talk about Rust. And so there's that side, but then there's the other side, which is the community that Rust builds. Because people are so excited about it, is a community of people that are really excited to have new people wanting to try out Rust. And so instead of there being a lot of elitism and people saying, oh, you're like a terrible Rust programmer, you have no idea what you're doing, it's much more a community of hey, what you're doing is awesome. What can I show you to help you sort of improve like your knowledge of the language? And so for me, like there's a lot of features of Rust. So you have like the borrow checker, fearless concurrency, like memory safety, like these are kind of like hand in hand. You also have like a really great type system that's based on like a lot of functional stuff. You have like a lot of other functional stuff like iterators, closures, all this magic. But for me, this is one of the well-known things, but the community for me is like one of the largest features of Rust. And so I've definitely been able to like live that a lot more myself because of the opportunities I've gotten to be able to contribute to the language. But yeah, I think that Rust does a lot of work to make it so that the community is very welcoming and the community is very inclusive. And I think that this is like shown off in so many different ways through like, of course, there's always room to improve. This is like a big thing that like, there's been like a lot of sort of like drama about like some of the internal teams reshuffling and like stuff that's happened. But a lot of that, in my view, is very healthy that people are able to come out and talk against like something that's going wrong with like there's like the bod team stepped down and like people are like, oh, let's like figure out what's going on with this and how we can revise it. And so there's a lot of continual work to make this happen. But then the effect is that as it reaches like the outsides of people who want to get involved with Rust, you only really hear like you hear a lot of good things. It's more difficult to hear bad things. And like the biggest example of this is like the Stack Overflow survey, where like Rust has been like the most loved language for like I don't know, six-ish years in a row or something like that. Yeah, so definitely community is something that is like a bit like a big focus for myself within like Rust's feature set.
Yeah, damn, that's really cool. Is there any like I don't know tips or advice to like getting into open source in general that maybe you've learned over the years that would be helpful? Because I've personally found it a little hard to get in that groove of kind of contributing to something constantly, or like even if it may not be through core development per se.
Yeah, so I think that this is definitely like a very large question, because we learn about open source, we learn about this ideology of software where people can not only see the code that is there, but also contribute to it. And for myself, I took quite a long time to figure out where it makes the most sense, or like where I'm best able to contribute to open source projects. And so for me to say like contributing to Valoran is easy is really not a fair thing to say, because I've had so many years of figuring out exactly what the project is and also molding a lot of that myself. And so on the other hand, what I find myself doing much more often is when I'm using software in my everyday life, I come across something that doesn't work as I expect. And then I'm able to like understand the workflow of going and making a pull request and getting stuff, like getting a small fix in or something like that. And so the biggest example is I tend to do this with a lot of Python libraries. I don't know what I have here. Okay, so like Django Service Objects is one that I've done some stuff with. And I'm like a maintainer on this project now. but I've come in and sort of it's very like see a need, fill a need for some stuff, and then also just work on what my strengths are. And so I'm pretty good at Python. Like I quite like it, but I also see how much of a deep end there is that I don't understand about how a lot more of like the meta class system works and how a lot of like the magical software engineering side works. And so what I can contribute to is like, for example, I saw some versions of stuff were broken in like some files. And so I went out and I looked at, okay, well, Django is able to use like 2.2 with these versions of Python, and then Django 4.0 can use these versions. And so I go in and I find this config file and I fix this up. So that kind of thing, that's one side of it. And then I guess there's also like the other side, which is like, I'm using something, it's broken for what I'm trying to do. And so this other person made this this pull request, but I was able to go in and figure out, oh, like I went and read Django's 4.0 release notes. I found out that this thing was going on. I looked at like the upgrade guide. I found that you just had to do it like this. And so I changed stuff out a little bit. And so for a lot of this is definitely not a lot of steps when you look at it retrospectively from what I did. But that being said, these steps are not necessarily clear when you're going in for the first time on like, okay, well, first off, how do you make a pull request? Okay, well, then you also need to know what is Git, what is GitHub? You also need to know just like general, not politeness or whatever, but like the way that you go about interacting with people on GitHub. You need to then know about Python, about like what Django is like trying to do, why it might have issues. And so there's definitely a lot of core stuff that I've learned over time. But I think so one thing I try to do a lot is paying it forward to helping a lot of students to learn a lot of this stuff. And so for example, like I'm TAing first year game design here at Carleton this year. And I've put in a really big effort to make it so that all of the students, even though they're not forced to use Git and GitHub, I've pretty much forced them throughout the labs to use Git and GitHub. And instead of like me coming in and saying, okay, well, here's like a small workshop and go off and learn it on your own, I'll spend like more than half of each lab when I'm not like answering questions and stuff, just hanging out with groups and like walking them through workflows and showing them some stuff. And so for me, I definitely see this as the way to help people improve a lot instead of necessarily saying you have to figure out it all out on your own. But then again, with open source, there's still a lot of bridges that need to be sort of gapped. Like I'm not saying that I have like an easy solution to getting your first pull request. But that being said, there are ways and like resources to try and do this. Like Hacktoberfest takes place in October of each year. This is a great way to find places that you can contribute to different projects and have mentors help you, and find resources for contributing, and have the culture based around people trying to make their first time contributions. Yeah, so open source is great. I've had like several years of working in open source, which is why it's like very fluid to me at this point. But there was certainly a point where I had no idea how to do it either. And so do not think that it is an infinite hill that is impossible to climb.
Oh, no, that's really helpful actually. No, like I have contributed to a couple places, but like, getting to the groove and like actually being on like, kind of finding something that, really that sticks in a sense hasn't, I haven't, and I understand that's something that you need to explore, and it comes with time. But no, no, it's definitely really helpful. Hopefully, like last two questions.
Yeah, of course.
It's not too much time from your side. Obviously, like like honestly, like in terms, like the amount of I guess contribution you've done to like the Carleton community, like even the open source community is a lot, and I see you like constantly helping people out, constantly being active on open source, constantly writing these blog posts and things like that. So like there's a lot you do. I'm curious how you manage like all these things together. What keeps you going? And and also like handling life on the side, right? Is there something that helps you keep that balance, or like helps you gives that drive to you to constantly what keeps you going through all these different things that you're involved in? And because I feel like me personally, when I'm involved in one too many things, I tend to like not really give my best on something, I feel, and then that kind of like really hurts the progress on one end per se. I'm curious how you like do so many things, but yet are able to push every single thing, into that next step. And
yeah, So this is a really good question, and I this is also like a subject I could talk for like a very long time on, because there's like layers to this for sure. But I think what I'll like keep it brief with is there is like this idea of you look at someone and you wonder how they can magically do so many things. And even from my position, where people can look at me and see like how much I'm doing in a lot of different communities, there are still people that I look up to and say, how can you do so many things? And so what I will break it down to for myself, and then I suppose like recursively to any other person that's probably above me that I aspire to be more similar to, is that the amount of work that I do, or the amount of work that I get done, is on projects that I'm very, very passionate about doing. And so for me, I have like the process of making a Valorant dev blog. You can look at the markdown for it. I have it down to like such a not really science, but like the idea, like I can go into one, and actually this is an old one, so let me go find like a newer one. But I have it like super well set up so that I don't have to spend a ton of time working on it. And so I copy and paste a lot of stuff. This is all from the previous week. I have to write this. I get this from GitHub. I copy and paste people's sections that they write in. I read through it, I edit it. And so I have like a process that is like super, super efficient. And then there was like 2 weeks where I was sick, and so I wasn't able to work on this. And then some of the other Valorant developers did the blog post in that time. And they told me like, I have no idea how you do this every week. There's like so much has to go into this, and you have to just double check so many things. And to me, because I have this like down super quick, for me, like I'm like, oh, I made a mistake, whatever. I'm fine to push to master. All of this that I really don't care about, because I don't want that overhead on it. So that's like a little bit of an example of I'm really passionate about getting these blog posts out. I love that I have like a track record of so many weeks in a row. I love that it helps the community so much. If this didn't create motivation for me, then there's no way I would do this. But then on the other hand, we can look at it from the perspective of like, okay, well, what's like the iceberg above the surface is like, you see me working on a lot of stuff. And then the iceberg below the surface is like the amount of stuff that I put off until later, and that I don't do, or I still have the thing where it's like, if I see something cool on GitHub, like a cool project, I'm going to go start a new project that's only going to like make it like through the first hour of me doing anything. And it's not going to go anywhere after that. And it's just gonna be like another private repo type of thing. And so I still have all of this that everybody else does. But I've found the things that I'm able to do on the surface that I'm able to do quite well, that allow me to not spend so much effort and have really good results. And so as for that stuff that's below the surface, like as an example, today is like the 22nd. This previous one that I just wrote came out on the 7th of March, but it actually, I wrote it last Tuesday. And so I'm supposed to write the one for, I don't know, what's like last week's Monday is like the 14th. That was I'm gonna probably write it tomorrow and then backdate it to the 14th, so it looks like everything's in order. But I very much, my cadence of when I write stuff, there is one per week, and it does cover content from that week, but it definitely might not come out during that week. And so there's a lot of stuff that it's more just like doing a lot of stuff. First of all, it's entirely based on passion. Like I would not be doing a lot of the stuff I care about, or a lot of stuff that you see me doing, unless I really, really wanted to do it. Like I drop projects so fast once they're like not interesting to me anymore. And then second of all, it's that it looks like there's a lot being done because like I have a historical record of it, but I'm still like doggy paddling in a lot of ways to keep up with a lot of stuff on the surface. And so I think, and also another thing that I can make very explicit is that like this is not like my 3rd year at Carleton. Like I'm not a 3rd year student. I'm a 4th year standing student, but this is my 7th year at the university. And so I did like the CCSS for like the first 3 years of my CS career, maybe 4 years, I'm not sure. And then I was able to use like a lot of connections I had there. So I already solved the problem of talking to all the people at the School of Computer Science. Like I know them quite well. I can get a lot of stuff done. And so for me, making things happen is significantly easier than it would be for someone without a lot of the foundation that I do. And so I think there's definitely a lot that contributes to it. And moral of the story is when you see someone who you aspire to be because they do so much, know that they would tell you that a lot of what they do is very jank in the process that they have. They're unorganized. They have a lot of the similar bad habits that you might consider yourself having. And once you see the world more through that lens, which as I mentioned, I can see that because I'm at that point where I see people ahead of me and I understand what people behind me might see. So it's like definitely, yeah. it's the same type of thing where everyone will say, I've always like, there was certainly a point where I was where you are. And eventually, like, if you keep pushing, if you keep climbing the mountain, you'll get there. That's like the motivational, motivational speech.
No, this is great. Yeah, sometimes you just like, like that little bit of consistency or like, that can go a long way. That small bit of progress that you could do over a long period of time can really build up as well. No, this is a great conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
I mean, I love talking. Like the thing is, like, I realize we've been going on for 3 hours, and that's great. This is the end of the recording. So if anybody's made it this far on YouTube, it's like, all right, well, you're just getting more content, and I'm not interrupting anybody, hopefully. But I like when I run meetups and stuff like that, I can just talk with people for hours. And so until you stop asking me questions, I'll stop, or I will not stop answering them.
You work too, right? Like you have a day job or
yeah, and so
startup from around?
Yeah, so there's definitely in the startup world, there's like a lot of stuff that's like ups and downs and stuff like that. So the main thing I'm working on right now is contract work for a company in Alberta, and we're working on sort of like redesigning like a web app from the ground up that helps collect helps native communities collect information about their like their nation or like anybody they're looking after. And so it's a really cool project that I've worked on for several years so far, but in this like revamp, we're like taking a lot from the ground up. And so it's pretty good, consistent work, like contract work, and it pays like mediocre. But what I'm hoping is definitely that like this revitalized platform can make it a lot more stable as like a place to work. And so for myself, I really like doing this level of I've controlled since the beginning of this new project all of the technical sides of it. And so we're using like Quasar, which is a framework on top of Vue, and we're using Django in the back end, and I'm hosting it on DigitalOcean. I'm using Nomad and all of this kind of stuff. And so I see like that full macro stack of everything that's happening on this project. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I have more on the back burner that I'm definitely going to be working more on in the future is this one's like a startup that I co-founded with a friend, or rather like the friend co-founded with me. He's like the CEO. He does all the business stuff. He has the idea, and then I do like the tech stuff. And so this is called Timsel, and I'm going to open it up because like, gotta share what's going on. And so before COVID, we were working a lot on this, and then we took a bit of a break over COVID. Like my friend still work. He does like the front end stuff, and he's still working on a lot of like getting like a new version going. And I still work with him like frequently on this other product as well. And so this one has been really interesting because we've done pilots with like Carleton University. We've done pilots with like the Royal, which is like a hospital here in Ottawa, and Ottawa Public Health as well. And so we've gotten like a lot of really cool opportunities to do like have the startup feel and do a lot of the like kind of stuff that you'd imagine for a startup. And what like essentially the idea is it's a sort of accountability app similar to something like Instagram, but a lot more focused on you being connected to your like the immediate people around you, so like your friends and family. And every time that you do some type of healthy habit, you track that in like an Instagram like feed. And so it's trying to use the social media sort of way of getting people on devices to do healthier habits in a less detrimental way against like the things like the different social media have around like addiction or just like ways of viewing other people that aren't yourself and so on and so forth. And so this has like been a really cool product to be a part of. And yeah, it's really cool. I really like the feel of working on products from the ground up, not working in like a cog in the wheel kind of place where you make something happen in a very big machine. But that being said, like this is a type of thing that's very unstable, right? Like I do not make as much as I could if I was like working at a big company. And so in the long run, my goal is definitely to either have one of these startups that can like sustain me and like has like a good amount of like cash flow and stuff like that, or I'll give up when I'm like 30 or something and go get a big tech job.
Yeah, and then at that point you still have a really good resume because you worked on really cool shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely build. It's really helpful that I'm still a student, and this is like one of the big reasons I'm still a student. And like this is also like the 2-hour conversation I could have about like how I spend my time as a student versus working on a lot of other stuff. But the general gist of it is, as a student, I'm able to really go off on all cylinders. I'm able to take some courses. I'm able to do a little bit of work on startup stuff, work on open source, work on like a lot of community outreach and stuff. And if I had a 9 to 5, I wouldn't be able to do any of that. And so it's a very vicarious position of my life, but it allows me to really try out some cool stuff.
No, I totally feel that. No, like, because doing co-op, like I almost feel like my energy for like doing anything creative after that 9 to 5 is so hard, like to get into. No, so yeah, no, I totally
Absolutely,
feel
yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, this is really good talk.
Yeah,
for us, like,
absolutely.
yeah, appreciate it. Okay, I guess I can stop the recording now. I don't have any more questions.
Oh, good.